Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 243. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And here to complain is Connor.
Oh, don't you worry. I will deliver on that promise.
Oh, man.
I'm delighted.
I forgot about that.
I'm delighted to announce that Connor will not be here next week. So, so if he's too much to take in this episode, he will be missing next time.
There's a downturn in CR21.
It feels like an excuse to be obnoxious this week. Let's be honest.
What's your excuse every other week?
Excellent question, Matt. Excellent
do I
question.
need one really?
Yeah, he's an alcoholic, Matt. That's what it is. So
it's okay. He just remember, Pete. He hates himself more than you hate him.
That's not possible.
That's not true.
So this is a DC Comics podcast. We get together, we've read our DC books of the week. We'll talk about them. Coming up on this week's show is the dawn of a new era, because we are starting with Infinite Frontier issue 0, and then we move on to Batman 106, The Swamp Thing issue 1, Man-Bat issue 2. I've written down issue 1, let me just correct that as I'm talking. Crime Syndicate issue 1, and a couple of Patreon books. We got Nocterra issue 1 for Connor, and I'm doing Animal Man issue 6. So that is what is coming up book-wise on today's show, but there's a little bit of news, a couple of other things. Start off, I want to officially start nagging people about this, so everyone remembers to do it. But to celebrate episode 250 coming up next month, there is a vote happening. The form has been tweeted out at DC Comics Podcast on our Twitter, but will be put on probably the YouTube post system and anywhere else you want to find it or ask us about it or ask us for it. A link to the submission form for the top 50 DC characters of all time, which you will submit your top 20. You can submit a full top 50, but the minimum is a top 20. And I'll just remember to be specific. You know, don't just put Batgirl, because that could be like 3 different people. And if you really care about a lot of these characters, you probably want to put all 3 of them or 2 of them or whatever anyway.
And if you put Batman at number 1, just know you're dead to me.
Unless it's Dick Grayson.
You can have him in the top 5. Put him at the, top 1 though. Come on. He's not even the best Batman, Bruce Wayne. Come on.
Yes. Although for the record, let's specify Dick Grayson Batman. Dick Grayson's just Dick Grayson, regardless of what mantle he had at any point.
That was just me using semantics to say you could put Dick Grayson at number 1, and still in some ways you would be putting Batman at number 1, depending on when you look at this.
Yes.
Okay, don't put Bruce Wayne number 1. All right, he's not even the best Batman. Edit around that, Pete. Make me look smart.
Sure, Matt. Sure, I'll put that work in.
He's not gonna do it.
If anything, if you say something really stupid, I'll repeat it 3 times, and then the last time will be in slow motion, just to really drive it home.
The really nice way of looking at this, Matt, is he's not editing it because he thinks you already look smart, so he thinks it's fine.
Yeah, let's go with that. So
Fine by me. I live in a world of what is that? Not ignoring. I guess it's ignorance. I guess I live in a world of ignorance.
Yes,
as it is now. So that's fine.
You live in your own little Matt Bearfield echo chamber, and that's fine.
Yes.
So the submission deadline for that is the end of March, but please do submit during the month. You've got all month, and then we'll be doing a special results episode. Either just before or just after episode 250. It just really just depends when we can fit in recording it, to be honest, next month. But we will have the results for that next month. But you've got all March to actually submit your picks, and that will give us a nice event to celebrate episode 250. So I will be starting off basically every episode for this month, telling you to do that, so everyone remembers to. So that is that. Right, I could check that off. We do have some news. We have some DC Comics news, including one exciting thing, actually. I
good. I didn't look at any news, so this is news to me.
I would say, you know about this first one. This is big news. Tom King's got a new miniseries starting in June.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah. So this is the thing. The Super line has been quite healthy in recent years, in the sense that, there was a Lois book, there was a Jimmy book, obviously Ed Bendis doing both Superman in action. And then, of course, new writers, very promising. But a lot of those other characters don't really seem to have books. Supergirl's been gone for a while, but Supergirl is getting a miniseries, a prestige miniseries from Tom King, and Bilquis Evely, who you may know from the hit Wonder Woman issue 8.
Yeah.
starring Barbara Ann Minerva. So this is going to be an 8-issue mini starting in June, called Supergirl: Women of Tomorrow. Your thoughts, Matt?
So first I heard Tom King's Supergirl book, and I was like, oh, cool. It's like they're one of his 10-issue things, or is it 8 or 10?
It's 8 actually.
8, yeah, okay.
Which is different from his usual 12.
Right. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I saw Evely on art, and I was like, I'm there. And then he tweeted out the cover. I was like, oh, I need that. So I'm so much here for this. Like,
I'm shocked.
Supergirl, Crypto on the cover. She's holding a sword.
Yeah.
I'll read the what's here as a description. Because there is the one here. Hold on. An alien girl seeks her out for a vicious mission. Her world has been destroyed and the bad guys responsible are still out there. She wants revenge. If Supergirl doesn't help her, she'll do it herself, whatever the cost. So it's going cosmic. Supergirl's going off with this alien to potentially help and or talk her out of said revenge. We will see, but she is holding a sword, as Matt said. She's back in the red skirt as opposed to the blue skirt. Not a huge change, but worth mentioning. Yeah, I'm pumped. I wanted another Supergirl book, and while an ongoing would be great, a prestigious Tom King 8-issue mini is arguably even a bigger deal in terms of actual, because this will be a trade. This will be something you can say, hey, best Supergirl stories of all time. There's a good chance we're going to say, hey, read this Tom King Supergirl book.
Well, that's why DC are making it. All of these Black Label books, especially all these Tom King ones, they're designed not for us reading monthly. Not really. They're designed for the book market for years to come. That's
just to clarify, this is not a Black Label book.
No, but I'm including this with those. I know.
I'm just clarifying for the audience because the way you said that.
Right. So, which tells me that when you think about continuity and whatnot, that this will actually be a piece in the Supergirl mythos going forward. Other writers can refer back to this in many ways. Whereas, kind of with Strange Adventures and Mr. Miracle, those are their own thing.
Yeah, some parts will be taken that people like the idea of the kid being born and stuff. Maybe that gets I think it's even been referenced once already in something else. But we'll have moments like that. But the thing is, though, is because this is dealing with another planet, it's dealing with this alien. Most of this can be pretty much whatever Tom King wants it to be. The only thing that has to happen is that Supergirl is still Supergirl by the end, and it can still stay in continuity,
right,
without any effort really. So
and he has grown as a writer since. I still need to read his vision, but with all the WandaVision stuff out, like, you can't go on Twitter right now without people going, hey, if you guys really liked WandaVision, check out his vision mini or whatever it was, maxi series, so
it's very good.
I just
possibly one of my favorite. It might be my favorite Tom King work.
Wow. So I hope this is closer to, looking at his DC work, hoping that this is closer to, the Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures, and like Omega Men, which I couldn't get through. This is one story that I couldn't connect to. But he's doing Cosmic, so we'll just see how that goes. But I'm pumped. And then you get on the Evely art, and it's just like, come on, this is an embarrassment of riches.
Yep. This was out of nowhere. This is surprising. It's a week early as far as presumably we're going to have solicits for next week's episode. Although last month it was a week later, so it could go either way.
There's the reason they announced it when they did is due to they name drop it at the end of Infinite Frontier, don't they?
Yeah, I mean that's why. But they could have just not done that.
I guess. But they clearly wanted something to show in June. They wanted to show, there's stuff coming, every month for the next few months. So they wanted something to put in the June slot at the end of Infinite Frontier.
Yeah, but relative due to the normal cycle of comics and how we get our news, this is relatively out of nowhere. Yeah, there's a reason why it's specifically pointing up this week, but it is kind of random based on when we normally get our news. And there was actually a second thing that came out of that, which is the second part of news. And it's not super surprising, but there is going to be a mini-series by Joshua Williamson that is Infinite Frontier. So issue 0 will lead to an issue 1. Issue 1 is going to launch in June. and I want to say it's a 5-issue mini, but 6-issue. Sorry, 6-issue. For some reason, I had 5 in my head. I don't know why.
Man, with the 0, that makes 7, which is pretty pretty DC of them.
That is true. So yeah, I don't know if there was like a proper description of what the actual.
I don't remember reading one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But based on what we read in Infinite Frontier, I'm sure it has, it's going to pick up on those main kind of story plot threads.
Well, a lot of those
right?
threads are going to be taken up in the ongoing book, so I imagine if anything, it'll be Wonder Woman stuff.
Well, I'm wondering with the two, with the Elseworld and the other one.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, very possibly. But actually, there's a lot about here actually in this article. In the summer event, Alan Scott, the Green Lantern from the Just Society of America, has noticed that some of his allies are still missing in action, and he's determined to find them. Oh boy, I like that sentence. I do like that sentence.
There's a little bit more as well.
Yeah. There are others, though, that would rather remain hidden than explain themselves. Roy Harper, aka Arsenal, the man who should be dead now, is not. More than that in a bit when we talk about the book.
Yeah, buddy.
Plus, what does all this mean for the DCU's place in the multiverse? On the opposite sides of the dimensional divide, both Barry Allen and President Superman ponder this question. Which actually ties into what Matt was saying about the continuing investigating these Earths, or these two planets, I should say. Not to mention I'll save that for when we talk about that next sentence, because that's spoiling the last page of Infinite Frontier Zero, so I won't be a complete dick.
Remind me to bring up something Williamson involved, when we get to the end of it.
Sure.
Just so I don't forget.
Okay, what else was involved at the end of Infinite Frontier?
Yes.
So, I mean, not surprising. There's going to be an event mini spinning out of Infinite Frontier. That's neat. I'm excited. I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm here for more Williamson stuff, just as long as it doesn't, go too long like on Flash. Where you can kind of feel it, feel the dip. I feel like a 6-issue mini. Right in there.
Well, it was more like issue 55. He started dipping with Flash, so I think you're all right.
Yeah.
I think you're all right.
Yeah.
So that was basically the news. The only other thing, and this is something that really I'll just bring up more when we're reading the actual books or talking about the actual books. But Tynion did kind of imply there's going to be something to do with the Batgirls later in the year. Maybe a book, maybe not. It was all very vague. But
I mean, he did confirm there are creators already attached to whatever it is. So implies to me a book, or at the very least, a story in one of the anthologies or a backup. Yeah.
So no, that's cool. We'll talk about more exactly what we think that could be when we get to relevant stuff in the books, because there is stuff.
Plenty.
Which I am delighted to see. So that's cool. That was the news, unless there was anything else that I missed that people wanted to bring up.
No, just that I would really like Diamond to sort out their UK shipping better, so that I don't have to wait like 2 or 3 weeks for some of my books at a time, because it's starting to piss me off having to double dip.
Yeah, so I went into my shop Wednesday, and one of the guys that works there goes, "Hey, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but there's no Marvel or Independent, because I usually just pick up DC." And I go, "Huh? Why is that?" He goes, Diamond screwed up. They'll be here tomorrow." And I was like, "Weird, but you got all your DC books, right?" He goes, "Oh yeah, Lunar, not a problem since." And I was like, "Wow!" And now we know why DC went with the option that they
obviously
did.
In the UK, they're still using Diamond UK. Not until next week. This week's books arrived, like the Swamp Thing, for example, doesn't come out, isn't in the UK stores till next week. But also the final week, so last week of Future State is also coming out next week for those books. It's a mess.
Good thing digital exists.
Yes, that digital making it very easy for everyone to be on par. Yes, which is nice. So I mean, obviously, it's a big week. It's start of a new era. This is kind of special for us in the sense that we started this show with the start of Rebirth, and I think that this is genuinely the start of the next phase, the next era, whatever we're going to call it. Naturally, we're going to probably refer to this as the Infinite Frontier era. I don't think it's quite as
At least for the
catchy.
foreseeable future, though.
It's not quite as catchy as Rebirth, but
No.
it started with a one shot. It's kind of put us all into a new status quo after Future State and after
All the books have the big Infinite Frontier splash on it.
Mm-hmm.
and obviously after the end of Death Metal, where we're sort of propelled into this new version of continuity.
Yeah, and I am just happy because not that like Rebirth was starting to feel, I don't want to say stale, but we were kind of in like a holding pattern almost. And we had 2 metal events and little continuity changes here or there. This feels like a full refresh. Even though not much has changed.
Well,
It's a weird thing.
I think to be fair to Rebirth, I don't think any problems we had with things needing a refresh in the last couple of years were really anything to do with the concept of Rebirth in the first place, because it kind of shifted quite far from when Jeff Johns came in and launched it all, and obviously the departure of Didio and everything in the past year and a half is why things are refreshing as hard as they are right now. Arguably they might have refreshed in a very different way, if anyway, but obviously we have the version we have now, which I think leads us in nicely to Infinite Frontier issue 0, which obviously a whole host of creators. We'll get into it as we as we go.
Well, you say that, but they don't say the creators as they go, so it might be worth kind of.
No, but I like that they're doing these table of contents style pages. So you it's easy to refer back to.
Okay, for Connor's sake, since he's insisting I do it, obviously Joshua Williamson is the wraparound.
With Tynion and Snyder, apparently.
With Tynion and Snyder. Where is the... Oh, it's up at the top.
They're right at the top,
right at the top. Notably, though, the very, very ending by Williamson has got JRJR art, which is probably the worst thing about the whole book. So we'll get to that when we get to it. Although Carr's making a face which implies he hates something else, because of course he hates something else, because why would Connor like good things? That just doesn't make sense, does it? So just to run down how these are broken up. Now, these don't have pages on them, and part of that's because Batman, for instance, is split into 2, so it just makes sense just to sort of label it by title. But the Justice League story is by Bendis with art by David Marquez, which makes sense. They're on the book. Batman's by James Tynion IV and Jorge Jiminez. Again, makes sense. They're on the ongoing book. Wonder Woman's by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. I know what section that is. I'm thinking about it because obviously the wraparound's also Wonder Woman technically, but I'm just thinking about what section that is. Yes, makes sense because on the book.
Yes.
Wonder Girl, Joelle Jones, again, makes sense. She's on the book. Green Lantern Alan Scott, interesting, is by James Tynion IV with Stephen Byrne on art. So curious. And if Alan Scott's going to be a main feature in the miniseries that's coming in summer, maybe it makes sense that that's not necessarily someone who's attached to an ongoing book that's related to him right now.
I think the strangest part by that logic is that it's not Williamson.
Well, no, but you just pointed out that Tynion's one of the writers overall at the top. So
that's true.
So that makes me think that Tynion and Snyder might also be writing some of the mini with
and also given the context of what this particular story is, and and being Tynion and Byrne, and who they are as people, it makes sense why this team is on.
And on top of that too is the continuation from the Green Lantern special that they did.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure Carr just told me something about Stephen Byrne that I didn't know, because I didn't realize that he fit into that category. But fair enough.
Yeah.
So Teen Titans Academy, written by Tim Sheridan, art by Rafa Sandoval and Jordi Tarragona. Again, makes sense given who's on the ongoing book. Superman, Philip Kennedy Johnson, with art by Jamal Igle.
It's good to see Igle back doing super stuff.
Yeah. Is this the John story, I assume? Because the other one's definitely the Justice League one, yeah.
Yeah.
Green Arrow and Black Canary, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Alex Maleev. That's cool. If that leads to, I mean, I know they're going to be in Justice League, but if that leads to a Green Arrow and Black Canary book with Maleev, then oh baby.
I feel like it has to at a certain point. Just
the only problem with that is, I mean, from my perspective, is how often does Maleev work with non-Bendis people on an actual run outside of I know he does like short little bits like this. He's had the odd backup in things before, but when he does runs, full stories, more often than not, it's with Bendis.
Stargirl, Jeff Johns and Todd Nuck. No surprises. Green Lanterns, Jeffrey Thorne, Dexter Soy. Again, no surprises. The Flash by Joshua Williamson and Howard Porter, which is interesting, and that leads me to think that is more leading into... I mean, obviously it sets up something for the Flash book. We'll get to that when we get there, but it maybe implies that story is more relevant to what it's setting up for Barry doing in the miniseries Infinite Frontier come summer.
Right.
So that makes sense. And then the epilogue, of course, as I mentioned, Williamson with John Romita Jr. on art, unfortunately. But so there's your creators for us to refer back to. I'll lately forget half of those names as we're going, but there they are. So the basic gist of this is that Wonder Woman is given an offer by the Quintessence to...
That was a nice sighting by them. So...
Yeah. I like Wonder Woman recognizing Hera as well, which was a nice touch in the Quintessence.
So, real quick, the Quintessence, it's Ganthet, it's Highfather, it's the Phantom Stranger, it's Hera, and the fifth one.
It's a good question.
Who is it? Because is it Zeus? Oh no, it's the Wizard.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like it could be the Wizard.
The Wizard. That's
it's
right.
The purple that throws me off. I'm not used to.
Yeah,
it doesn't always wear.
Well,
the
and
purple.
it doesn't. And this is not the Wizard that we've been seeing lately. You know, the Wizard has a different look since at least New 52. So to see this version, it took me a second, and then I remembered right after I asked. I was like, oh yeah, because for a second I thought it was Zeus. I'm like, wait, but why do we have Zeus and Hera?
Yeah, but we just had a crisis, Matt, so his appearance can change a little bit.
Yeah. No, I know, but it kind of threw me because all the other ones, you can just, it's always a tail. Like even Hera, this looks more like the Azarello version of her, with the way that she is. But
yeah, and I think what's interesting though is Hera is probably the one you would not recognize at first, potentially, because she's not as distinct as some of the others.
No.
Like, compared to Phantom Stranger or Spectre, who are very obvious. So I think that's probably why they chose as well to have, Diana, reference her name beyond just, it's recognition from, that stuff, but it's helpful for the reader as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that the Spectre here points out that Wonder Woman just saw possible futures. So I think they're actually already clearly saying that future state is not a set in stone thing. Like whatever she's just seen is possible futures. So they're right away saying, even though some of the ongoing books are going to tie into things that are in those future state books, that doesn't necessarily mean that future is actually going to come to pass in the strictest sense.
At least not as directly as it seems there.
So I think that's important, and they've already put that in there. And we already kind of knew that was going to be true anyway, because it's comics, and they were never going to stick to what they'd set up, in 10 years' time, right? It's just the way things are. But it's nice that they're already kind of establishing that. But then, she's offered this job, and she's worried that she was told it was a great threat coming to the DCU, and that's why she's hesitant to take the offer. So the Spectre basically takes her around, and it's almost like Wally West in Rebirth. She goes around and sees various characters and what they're up to. John is like the one big exception where it's kind of in the future because it's him as Superman. Everyone else is more or less present day, I think, unless I'm forgetting one of them, but I think they are. So we start off with the Justice League story, which is where the Shazadam controversy came from. Which is to say that there's no controversy whatsoever. It's just that people don't know that he's called Black Adam, and that's just a joke, and that's it. That's the whole thing. But that's the kind of the little twist, is that because they're trying to tell him that Black Adam saved them, people in this country, and Superman is like, oh, you mean Shazam? You mean Captain Marvel? And like, no, this one, and they show him a photo on their phone, and it's Black Adam, and it's like, wait, okay, that's weird. And obviously this is teasing the Justice League stuff because Black Adam's going to be on the team. Honestly, it's like 3 or 4 pages. There's not much to it. Simple. The Marquez art's really nice.
It's fantastic. I was getting that this is a different Black Adam. Like this, in some ways, it feels like the Black Adam that we've always had. But I don't know if it's just the way Marquez is drawing him. It feels slightly off, almost like it is different. Like maybe someone has assumed the mantle of Black Adam.
Don't you dare say that he actually is Shazam.
No, I don't think it's Shazam. But maybe it's someone else. Maybe Black Adam has, abdicated finally and has given his power.
Hey, Matt,
I don't know.
Don't worry, Connor's going to find out because Connor's going to be reading with us. I think, from what I've heard from patrons.
I didn't read this though. I skipped those few pages.
You skipped 3 pages out of spite.
I didn't know how many pages it was going to be.
But it wasn't even like Bendis-y. It's the quickest Bendis thing I've ever read.
I didn't know how long it was going to be. I saw, Bendis doing the Justice League story, that's up first. Okay, skip through. Oh, art change, Gotham. Perfect, I'll jump in here.
Oh, geez, you're the worst sometimes, Connor.
I regret nothing.
I want to stick up for you most of the time, but like right now, I want to throttle you.
It's all right, you're going to have...
Do you know what? Sometimes I just... It's really hard in this show sometimes not to swear, especially right now when the C word's in my head and I just want to yell it at him. Like,
Connor? You can say Connor. It means the same thing.
Hey, whoa. His name's not Connor, actually. I've forgotten. His name's Conroe now.
Conroe.
I've forgotten this. Yes, Conroe is here on the show.
Conroe.
Apologies.
That's his Bizarro who actually likes good things.
I don't know. He had to pick on a tweet that I made a typo in, and now I'm just going to stick to it and call him Conroe.
Look, if you just made a typo of something else, I wouldn't have bothered, but you typoed my name, and I have some personal pride. Sometimes.
Well, next time I'm going to intentionally it's going to keep getting worse until it's barely unrecognizable. It's just going to be CR21 by the time it's finished. It's going to evolve into it. So I love Marquez's Clark. I think the Superman face is exceptional. That last panel of him just sort of looking off hopeful. And I know not everyone's a fan of Bendis dialogue, but I actually really love Superman saying, my mother says that all the time, and Barry's just like, oh, to be you. Well, at least, is it Barry? Given what happens later, maybe it isn't Barry.
Yeah, let's look at the suit. I mean, he's got blue eyes, so it's got to be Barry.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Wally has green eyes and a different shaped belt, so when he's the Flash.
I thought this was the Wally belt, though. It's got a point in the middle.
Well, then the color is messed up, because...
Wait, I'm scrolling to the end to compare. Come on, pages.
Well, no, I'm not comparing it to Wally's current suit. I'm comparing it to Wally's full Flash suit. Because he's going to be back in his regular Flash suit, though, right? When he becomes Flash.
You would assume.
Yeah.
Not his kid Flash.
I'm looking at the Barry suit at the end,
and
it looks pretty much the same, just without the extra speed line. It looks like Marquez has just cleaned up some of the speed lines a little bit, to be honest.
All right.
Yeah, no. So Wally's belt is more. You're right, though, Pete. This is more angled, but Barry's has always been like a full belt around, right?
Sure.
And that's what this looks like. Whereas Wally's always comes more to a V, like the two lightning bolts are meeting in the middle.
Yeah, which is why I was questioning it, because that shot from the panel from the side when he's pointing to Superman, it looks like it's pointing into the middle. Whereas Barry's, from my memory, it never did that. It was always just more of a steady across kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this is before he goes to the President Superman. Is Barry, just based off the eye color alone.
Yeah, it's an art glitch. I'll just call it that.
I think what is likely is that this is Barry, because I think everything in this issue takes place more or less chronologically.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So I think this is being seen before the ending of this, and then the ongoing Justice League book will take place after everything in this issue, barring one or two specific points. So more or less anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That was just an interesting question. Yeah, we go to Gotham. For the, I mean, now actually just I suppose I don't know why you rate it, Matt, but just general feelings on Justice League section. Yay, meh or nay?
That's a yay.
Yeah, yay for me too.
I like when Justice League, it doesn't need to be a flagship, but when it feels like it's doing bigger things than just kind of the event of the week.
Do you know what I like is he had 3 pages. He didn't try to cram every Justice League member into it. He just did a simple little thing, a little teasing Black Adam. And a little bit of Barry Clark interaction, and that's it.
It's a nice tease of what to expect from from where the story is gonna go.
Yeah. So we go to Gotham. and we get some narration from someone who, we don't really know who it is yet. Obviously, after reading the rest of this story and then reading Batman as well, it's like I just know who it is by looking at the font. But starting to read this, if you read this first, and you should have read this first, this should have been read before any other book this week.
This was definitely the first thing I read this week, because it feels like, no, this is kicking off everything, and everything else will spin out of this.
Yeah.
First thing Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I mean, it only really mattered for Batman, because Batman kind of follows directly on from the stuff in this, but...
It's just good practice that whenever these sorts of issues happen, event issues in general, 9 times out of 10 you want to read those first.
Yeah, so the issue is mainly set in Arkham, and we follow one of the guards in Arkham named Mahoney. Not to be confused with the main character from the first 4 Police Academy films, just for anyone who may have been confused. But
good old Gutenberg.
but he's in Arkham, and he discovers that there's a Joker toxin attack on Arkham, which everyone reacts to because it's like, wait, Joker doesn't usually do a big thing like so soon after he's done another big moment. And seemingly Bane is dead because he lifts up Bane's mask and we see his tongue hanging out and he's all Joker-fied.
So I have a theory on this, but we'll get through the issue first.
But we get to maybe the most important page of any comic this week, which is establishing the thing I've been asking for literally years at this point, right? Cass and Steph are out fighting grunts, right? And I mean, Cass especially is like straight up in her Batgirl outfit now, right? That's just, we've established that already.
Yeah, Steph's still in the spoiler suit.
I think the spoiler one's still cool enough and distinct enough that I don't think they felt the need. Whereas Cassie's orphan suit was just the Batgirl suit without the Bat logo of the year, so it always looked kind of, I don't know, kind of naked.
Do you know what I think part of the problem is as well is they need Steph to keep her purple color scheme.
Yes.
Yep.
But we just spent like 3 years with Babs running around in a purple bat suit.
Yes. I mean, I think Steph, you can't see it in this panel, but I'm pretty sure from the Batman issues from before, she did have a Bat logo on it now. So it's still the spoiler suit, but it's got a Bat logo on it.
If you really could you put ears on the hood?
Please no.
Still, I
don't think you need to.
One of those Japanese style hoodies that look like animals. It's called a kigurumi.
I'd
if
rather
anyone
not.
A DC editorial is listening to this, please disregard the last 40 seconds.
Yes.
Just put a little bit of bat ears there.
Please no.
She's still there.
But Joe, actually, this reminded me of, there's a moment way back, this is going back to a Marvel thing, but way back when Bendis started off his new Avengers run, there's a moment in issue 1 of that where whatever events happening out near the city and all these various random heroes have ran out, and there's a moment where Spider-Man says to Cap, say it, and he flip the page and it's Cap yelling Avengers Assemble, right? That's the moment. So here it reminded me of that because Cass is like, or Steph's like, you have to say it. It's like, please, you'll make Cass so happy if you say it. So you go back to the Watchtower and Barbara's in full Oracle mode, and she's like, okay, Batgirls on my signal, go. She calls them Batgirls. We've got Batgirls. It's officially a thing. And I do appreciate them having Huntress there to sort of point out that this is kind of an evolution of Birds of Prey. It's neat. But no.
Yeah, I mean, it is, though. You're just missing Dinah, but other than that.
Well, I don't think Huntress is going to stick around and be a part of it too much, but the point here is to set up that it is kind of an evolution of Birds of Prey, Oracle explains that she can still get in the suit and go kick ass occasionally, but hey, she always liked the idea of being everywhere, and she can't do that in the outfit, and that's the appeal of being Oracle partly, but it also gives her chip and her spine a chance to not be as heavily used.
And this is where I feel like she is at her best, because sure, she can be Batgirl, but to me, when I got into comics, she was already Oracle, and she fit into that role so well, as kind of the network for superheroes, and she can be everywhere at once, and on here now, she's not there. Like how they be like how they added here that. Her spinal, what does she call them on here? I can't find it, but the implants are, they could go out at any time. It's just kind of better to save this for big occasions. So when we do see her suit up, theoretically it would be during, when Tynion's writing a big, huge Batman thing.
I think her feeling she can do more by helping everyone from this sort of role is like the best justification for her wanting to do this when she she can put on the suit and go fight.
I'm honestly a little bit surprised that they haven't, as of yet. Maybe they still will in the eventual book/story wherever this shows up. If they they aren't tying this into the lack of Alfred there now, because Alfred has kind of been filling that role for the past decade or so.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I mean, when we get to Batman, I think it kind of shows you in Batman she is filling that role now. She is kind of taking that place as Alfred.
Right.
So
no, and I think functionally she is here as well. That's what I'm saying. Is that I'm surprised that it's not being addressed yet. Maybe it will be in that story when it comes up. But it feels like that's part of, or it should be part of her motivation here. Is as well as she's done this before, she knows what she's doing. She's good at it. She help. There isn't anyone else in that role anymore.
I don't necessarily even think I need like a story beat out of it. I'd like even just a subtle nod to this was Alfred's job before would be enough for me, just to kind of like set up. Oh, she's aware that she's doing it. She's aware that she's filling that role that he was.
Yeah, just some self-acknowledgement.
Yeah. But it's just, I even think of playing the Arkham games, and I'm like, you literally start off with Oracle, and then when Oracle stopped being the thing you spoke to, you spoke to Alfred instead. Even that game kind of swapped them in those roles, so it's kind of interesting. But the idea that Alfred was still fairly limited because he typically only spoke to Batman and maybe a few other Bat family members. Oracle is much more wider scope, and the idea, I'm going to take this global, I'm going to take this out. Like, she mostly talks to Bat characters and Gotham characters, but yeah, like there's precedence in comics for her to straight up to call Superman, to call whoever, Yeah. So that's neat. But yeah, so they react to the Joker attack. Grifter shows up to get Lucius Fox, who's with Jace. Is this the first time he's been introduced in present day?
I believe so.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
So
So it says that. We introduced the Mayor character, who obviously, having read Batman as well, we know is going to be a fairly prominent character.
He's been showing up in Detective recently as well.
Yeah.
Oh, neat. Okay, that's cool.
He was in
that
one issue I had to read. That was where he was running for mayor.
Well, I like that this worked for me, even though I hadn't read him in Detective.
Yeah.
But it set that up nicely. Sets up that they don't really want to rely on the masks as much anymore. But we essentially have this almost like, I mean, it's not even it's just one panel, but the idea that Mahoney's like one of the few people who have survived. He's able to like try and not breathe in the toxin, and he's running around inside. I actually love the cliffhanger because this is split into two. But the cliffhanger to this I love. It's Mahoney running through, and he's on the walkie-talkie. He's like, "Please, is anyone coming to help?" And you just hear "Stay on the line." And that final page is just this gorgeous full page spread of Batman saying he's on his, because Batman's not been here the whole story so far. This is his first appearance.
This page is Jiminez doing his best Maliv.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't know better, I probably would have said it was a Maliv page.
Yeah, he's upside down. He's on the zip, the grapple hook line or whatever. And it's just this super dark and inky.
It's a gorgeous page.
It's absolutely wonderful. It's both gorgeous and it's a wonderful like yeah moment after the previous like question. Just simple storytelling. How do we feel? I mean, it's only part one of this, I suppose. But yay or nay or meh?
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh my god.
Are we sure this is Joker toxin and not?
We're not. I mean, because there's no hint of Joker other than the fact that Joker toxins. I mean, the ending implies it's actually more someone else.
That's what I'm gonna say. Also, this guy's red hair, is this Peacekeeper 1? Is this the guy that becomes the first Peacekeeper?
We'll check when we get to that later, when we get a name again, and double check, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Did we ever get a name for Peacekeeper 1?
No, never did get a name.
No, so that's what I'm saying. It's when that reveal was made, and what was that? Was that in Dark Detective?
Yeah, or next Batman.
Took off his mask.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, he does lose an arm by the end of this story. I mean, that's not to say that he can't get like a bionic arm or something.
Cybernetic. And we know everyone in the Magistrate from those books. They get upgraded. I
mean, that comes up. No, that comes up in Batman though, so we'll get to that in Batman.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
for the record, my is more on the actual storytelling. I like the ideas. I like going forward. I'm excited for these various stories. I just think it reads really like there's like 2 pages of each thing, and it feels really fragmented. It doesn't feel like it flows together as one story.
I completely disagree. All of it's about reacting to the fact there's an attack on Arkham. This all felt completely connected to me.
It just felt really disjointed to me.
It didn't feel big to me. It didn't feel like it was affecting the
vibes.
whole city. Everyone's reacting to it. It felt that I was into it.
I prefer when Tynion is juggling Bat characters versus just his straight up Batman run. You know, like his detective. I feel like he has the right like mind to do this. So to see all these characters pop up the way that they do, I really like it. It makes it feel, you know, I feel the sense of Gotham.
Well, one of the best things about his run so far has been the ensemble building of like a cast that he's using, and you know, having Oracle and the Batgirls. Obviously, Harley's been a thing, and that's still true in the new issue too. Plus this mayor, plus magistrate stuff, and the villain that we're getting to in the back half of this later. I'm loving all the stuff that's is struggling. Next up, we have the Wonder Woman section, setting up the Nubia. Is going to be the replacement for Diana, but they do acknowledge that there is this other contender, this Brazilian Wonder Woman, and Yara Flor.
From the other, from the distant, you know,
other tribe.
sisterhood.
What they say,
so they reference that. So the story beat here is that Nubia gets like a test where she's going to open the box for the Medusa head, and it's certain death. But there's nothing in it. It's just not just death, but it's a fate worse than death because your body is, you know, frozen, but your mind's still alive. Sure, yeah. So it's like,
I like that Nubia's like, I'll take my chances. Let's do this. You know.
Yeah.
And that's where Hippolyta is like, oh no, okay, you pass.
But notably,
that's the type of attitude it takes.
Yeah, but notably, she's not sending Nubia off to go be the new Wonder Woman. She's basically saying that she's going to go into the world of man, which makes sense because we know she's going to be on Justice League. But Nubia's and it makes me wonder actually, like how much of the Wonder Woman book is going to have some Nubia stuff in it. Is it going to continue to be a backup in that story?
I think for the foreseeable future, at least.
Yeah.
Because all the solicits so far are still dealing with Diana.
Yeah, but who's to say that at the end of that arc we don't get a swap and now we get Nubia in the main?
It's very possible,
section.
especially as this story was Clune and Conrad, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah, I could see them doing a flip where they put Nubia in the main story and Diana goes out the backup for an arc. Like they could totally do that.
It's possible they do some Hippolyta story as well.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they could rotate the cast. Maybe not Yara just because she has her own book, but you know, all the others, you know, why not? Makes sense.
We have to rename the book Wonder Women.
Fine by me.
Oh, fine, sure, whatever. Well, no, because they'd have to renumber it. Just call it Wonder Woman. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, they didn't renumber Red Hood in any of those bloody renames.
Yeah, but you know.
No one cares about Red Hood.
That's Red Hood. It's not Wonder Woman.
Except you and David.
No, it's Wonder Women.
So yeah, yay or nay on that? Again, just a few pages. Matt,
So far, yay.
Connor.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. I don't have any strong feelings on this one either way.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm also not at a meh. I liked the story because I liked the whole Medusa head test.
You're not concerned is the point though. You're like maybe there should be like a yay plus for true excitement, but yay in sense that sure, I'm in.
No, I'm at that point. It's like it looks fine.
Yeah, okay. Then a couple of pages of Yara just to follow on from that, which introduces her in present day. She's going back to Brazil, which her auntie, I think it is, who she's living with, is not happy about it. Very upset. The little photo that is taken. Yara sort of like perks up and smells for it, even though they're having a fight, but the auntie does not.
I love her character so much.
I know. This is only 2 pages. Well, technically 3 because one's a 2-page spread, but whatever. Like it's really just 2 pages, and that 2-page spread of her waving goodbye has so much personality. And I mean, the only real key plot beat, other than introducing the idea of her aunt and uncle and that she moved away from Brazil, is that there's a couple of, I suspect, Amazons from the tribe she's technically from who have found her, secret agent style. So,
which tells me why is she up in Boise, Idaho, which is pretty much the opposite of the rainforest as you can get.
Right.
Matt,
I just know from backstory context that she's been living there for a while, most of her life.
I am so glad you knew where Boise was because I had no idea.
Yeah, no.
I only knew that she was in Idaho because of external interview stuff.
Yes, I was not aware of Idaho, so
I have a question, Matt. Is it normal for American airports to just hang the flag like that? Because that was just like bizarre to me.
Oh yeah, no, that's a thing.
God damn America.
Yeah.
It's the wrong way up.
Well, no, because us being America, we have certain codes and regulations that come to hanging the flag, and as long as it's not upside down, if you display it lengthwise like that, I do think the stars have to be facing, up in the top corner, because and you have to designate which way is straight, which one is where you're looking at it from, because if you go around to the other side, now it's on the the opposite side. But yeah, it's that's normal, Connor, and it's I'm
not sure you can double print it so that it's just flipped on the other side so it's right.
No, because the way that flags are sewn with the different fabric, right? It's not just one. Okay. Like proper flags like this. Like if you get one that's printed, that's like a cheapie you hang outside your house. But even then, it's not double sided like that. Like what you're saying, it's all straight through.
I think I love the idea of stealing like a proper flag like from an airport like this and replacing it with like a photocopied one just to see if anyone notices for any length of time.
Really?
You will get shot.
Let's imagine you are Catwoman and a Master Thief.
Yes.
And you're not like. I would venture to guess that not a lot of people would notice, because I've noticed that the people that care about the flag the most are just very loud about it, and they probably don't actually know like it's against the flag code to wear clothing items with the flag.
The flag code.
No, like legit, it's like a thing.
I was thinking
all the time.
I was thinking of the end of Being the Ultimate Disaster movie where he replaces Whistler's mother with a printout of it because he ruins the painting and just puts it in the frame and hope no one notices. Delightful film.
I regret bringing it up.
Delightful. On to the GSA, or more specifically Alan Scott fragment, which is again notable here in that they do reference that history has somewhat been restored because of the end of death metal. The idea of the GSA disbanding, Infinity Inc. coming there, and continuity being a little wonky as to their history, but you've got Alan with his kids, and the main point of this is Alan's telling his kids that he's gay, and we're kind of finally getting to this and them being happy to hear it from him and having a touching moment.
Yeah, and this is something that I really like, on top of because as far as I know, the first instance of him being gay came from James Robinson's Earth 2.
I think so, yeah.
So now the fact that the Earth 2 version has bled into here, I think that's really cool. And the fact that it doesn't take anything away from him having kids, just like the whole story that he tells them, like, I had to pretend to be someone I wasn't, but I got, a family out of it and whatnot.
There's definitely never been any history of gay men having kids before.
Well, I think it adds a lot more. Him being gay is actually far more interesting if he grew up in the era of World War II, and he grew up in those eras where it was harder to be open about that.
Right.
So
downright illegal at that point.
Yeah. So, I think that actually adds a. I mean, there was never a problem having the Earth 2 version, but the Earth 2 version was a present day Alan Scott. This is interesting because he had to live through this time period, and part of that concealment is informs his experience with it.
Well, and I love that he said, my closest friends kind of knew when I would have, other friends. And so I like that idea too. Like, of course Jay knew. Him and Jay are like best friends.
And then there's the implication that he wasn't alone the entire time. It's not like he's just been sat there on his own in his room. Right.
So no, I thought this was a very nicely told story, and especially with what we know about Obsidian, right? Because that was his I don't want to say defining characteristic, but it was a big thing during the 90s for Obsidian to be gay. And so for him to be there to support, like, the kid to support the dad, versus vice versa, it's just a nicely told story.
Yeah, I really
he's taking the name of Sentinel again.
I really liked this story when I read it, just because obviously I'm in for teasing whatever we're going to do with the GSA, but like knowing now that Alan's plot is going to at least be one of these threads that's in the miniseries that's coming now in the summer, even more so, because it's like, okay, so there's plans for this to continue in some form, and continue to explore this character. And the idea that he's hunting for other JSA members on top of that is just it's just, you know, chef's kiss. Like, yes. Give it to me. So I think we're all enthusiastically yay on that.
Very much. And Byrne art I'll take anytime.
Of course, yeah.
It's honestly, I think this is some of Byrne's best work as well. I think a complaint that could be leveled against Byrne is sometimes there's a lack of shading and subtlety in nuance across the shade as it goes through. He'll tend to do in like big blocks.
I mean, his art always seemed to me is very pop art styled. So you don't, yeah, you're right. You don't play with the shading a lot. Here, though, he almost was like, I'm going for it.
Right, especially like shadows on the faces. They kind of get softer and harder, you know, as they go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it still feels like Byrne, but it feels like Byrne doing a more serious comic book as opposed to his usual cartoony. Like, it feels like it's a nice blend of, you know, not a dark story, because it's not a dark story that's being told, but it's a more emotional story being told. So the art is reflecting that by not just being...
I think the word I would use is somber.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, somber. So yeah, then we have the Teen Titans set up, which is it's literally 2 pages of kids going to this Titans Academy.
I did not realize there was going to be this many kids.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's nothing really wrong with these 2 pages. It's just that we are so unenthusiastic about the book because of the Future State story that it just has a bit of a stink to it.
Right, and I think that's true of various other stories in this, like where, you know, the Yara Floor one. I think the only reason we're so enthusiastic about those, you know, 2/3 pages, depending on how you count it, is because of how much we care about Yara Floor from those, you know, 2 issues already. I think those 2 pages in themselves aren't that exciting, really, but it's just what we're bringing to it, and this is here the reverse, where we're bringing to it a pretty negative spin already.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't think those Yara Floor pages would read badly if, you know, we just wouldn't be as excited. It would just be like, oh, that seems fine. Let's see what it's like.
And I don't think this reads badly. I don't think if we hadn't read any of the Titan stuff from Future State, I don't think we'd be like disappointed in what this is doing. We'd be like, okay, it's 2 pages.
I mean, these 2 pages are better than a lot of what that last issue was.
There's not a lot of room to go wrong in 2 pages.
No, but they're not overstuffed. It feels like it's got a direction, and that's the thing we always liked about the premise of Titans Academy. Is okay, it's got a clear idea. It's doing this thing for the Titans.
That's the whole thing. I'm gonna forget about the Future State story. Like, just throw it out of my head.
Yes.
And just, you know, go forward. Like, hey, this is the Red X thing. I don't have to, you know, we can just keep wondering who it is and just try to enjoy the Teen Titans as teachers like I wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, there is a tease for Red X in that second page, but the foreground like, coming out the bag, yeah.
And that's fine. Like, you know, but I was getting Hogwarts vibes too.
Always interrupts him mid-point when he's going off on something.
Right.
You know, actually, can I just say that Titans logo they've all got in their backpacks is very X-Men. It's just a T instead of an X.
Yeah.
I was gonna say them going across the water in the Titans Tower looming. You know, I was getting Hogwarts vibes a little bit. You know,
I can see that. Yeah.
They bring the first years across on the boats.
Hogwarts, but not lame. Yes, I agree.
I mean,
look, there's a very real chance this is going to be way lamer than Hogwarts, and you know it.
Yeah.
I would have to try really hard to be lamer than Hogwarts.
I mean, we read the Future State stuff. It was, you know, the 4 Horsemen. The moment the 4 Horsemen come out, it's instantly lamer than Hogwarts. You know.
Let's put maybe even. Maybe we'll call it a tie.
Can we talk real quick too that on the so in this universe, and this might just be a fun little art thing that the artist threw in there. Apparently, the Teen Titans have a comic book that the kids are reading. Because a kid, if you on that page, it's the Wolfman Perez all new Teen Titans.
I think that's probably just a neat nod.
An Easter egg.
Yeah.
Like a fun. Okay.
You see that sort of thing a lot in comics. So.
But it was so clear, like it caught my eye as I was reading.
I think it stands out as well because it's in like grayscale as opposed to everything else, which is in color.
So I mean the yay man, yeah, yay man,
This is one where it's a on the line of meh and yay.
Yes.
Like, because again, future state, but I'm gonna forget that, and I'm gonna go in fresh, and
I'll say it's meh,
Professor Nightwing.
but it's only meh because of what the future state story set me up for.
Right. So
I would say the opposite, where it's meh in spite of the future state stuff. Because really, I would be nay based off of just these 2 pages.
Mm.
And I'm kind of just I'm like, they're fine, these 2 pages. So I mean, it would probably be meh on its own, but the future state stuff is dragging it down in my brain.
Mm.
So I'm kind of like going, it's not really fair to bring it down that much. So it's kind of on the line between them.
Well, in some ways, maybe the most controversial story up next, the John stuff. Because I know some people aren't necessarily fond of this idea of Spectre saying John is going to be a tyrant someday and that he's not a real Superman, he should never be Superman. As you know, obviously Diana's watching saying, what are you talking about? That's John, he's Superman. And it's, Spectre has this big speech about why he's went through all these horrible things. He was kidnapped by Ultraman for some time. His grandfather had him for some time. He missed some of his years. How much this is potentially going to mess him up. But then, of course, Diana has this great little speech about, no, look what he's just done with this monster. They didn't understand the Earth they were on. He showed compassion. He showed, he showed compassion and risked his own life for an enemy's sake. What's truer of a Superman than that? So she kind of wins this debate, and Spectre kind of gives up and says, okay, so be it. He's Superman then for now. But he bears watching, Diana.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why there's like a slight concern with the story in that I like it. I like the point that, no, he is Superman from Diana's perspective. Yeah. But it shows me a clear editorial perspective that they're not convinced in John's future, and they probably want to play with the dark John at some point, and I'm not looking forward to that.
Well, no, I to me it lines up with the whole idea of you've seen possible futures, Diana, right? They may come to pass, they may not. So for Spectre to be like, oh no, he's set to become a tyrant, she's like, well, wait, that's not who he is. You're writing him off already, And so I just like that, we see like a perfect distillation of what this character's been through on those pages, right? And just like how he's conceived on one world, born on another. Both of those are now gone. So he's kind of a man without a country in that way. So he's kind of free to be who he wants, and that she trusts, that's Superman's son. He is Superman, So, I like this. When people are having a fit with it, I was like, well, it's not like we had an evil future John monologuing about,
is
about
it
things.
Possible Spectre's concerns here are more a tease for the evil son that we saw in House of L, rather than John himself.
Yeah. Right. So, no, I thought this was a really good story here. Like, and I just love the layouts too, the art, how everything is spinning, and it's
the spirals are nice.
Yeah, and it's kind of disorienting as you're reading it, and then when he pops out on the other side and says this thing when it's it's just a little itty bitty time monster.
Yeah, and I think it is worth noting that I assume Spectre and the Quintessence as a whole have seen the same future state stuff that Diana saw and we saw, and in that Superman Man of Metropolis, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Superman of Metropolis. John was a tyrant. He bottled the entire city. Like, there's not really any debating around that.
Right, but he didn't do it in tyrant reasons. He did it in the name of safety.
Well, that's not. Right? That's not really the point. That's kind of irrelevant. Like, you can still be a tyrant and doing it for quote unquote the right reasons.
Right, but he also went back and put it back at the end. Don't forget how that ended.
No, I know. I'm not disputing that, but I mean, it's more just he still made those decisions at the time, and there's the idea that well, maybe he'll do more of that stuff, and that's probably why the Spectre worked.
But again, if you see, you didn't read the back half of it, right? So and the whole back half of that was him going like, well, no, I definitely messed up because I was trying to do too much of what would my dad do instead of what should I do.
Yeah, honestly,
and that's what makes him go back.
If this tease of him being a tyrant is just referring to what happened in that Future State book, then it's not actually that big a deal, because it was a lessing defining moment, and that was it.
Right.
No, I agree, but I suspect what I'm saying is I think the Spectre has seen that and is going. He's like, I don't think this will be the only bad decision he makes. I think he'll probably make other tyrant-esque decisions. Is what the Spectre's argument here is.
Well, I mean, if Johnson has a plan in mind to play with future John stuff and he's run, then we'll see what he does with that.
He's no Jordan Kent, all right? So we can...
Have you watched both episodes, Matt, of the show?
I've only watched the first one, and I will say I watched the first 5 minutes of the first episode made me weep. Like, this is a Superman I've been wanting on my screen for decades now.
Actually, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not going to tell you the answer if you don't know. But I just want to know if you know this. Do you know who Jordan's named after?
I feel like I should know it.
No, that's good. We're fine,
because there was a eureka moment when they mentioned it in the second episode that we went, of course!
It's like, it makes perfect sense.
Damn it, I'm actually going to watch the second episode. No, I don't, because I remember my friend arguing about what Clark's middle name is. And just, of course, I know it's Jerome after Jerry Siegel. That's what Jerry's short for.
No. You're the wrong path of thinking. No.
Right. So I'm trying to think.
You just, when we're finished here, go and watch the second episode, and you'll be like,
It's not a meta thing, Matt. It's something that Clark would do in universe. So it's not off the right or anything like that. It's not like that.
No. I'm trying to.
Not like the Schuster mines that they mentioned in the first episode.
Right.
Just while Matt thinks, I just a point on this story.
Yes.
What I think is interesting, from a more a larger perspective of going forward, rather than what this story actually is that Johnson decided in his story in this issue to tell a John story. When, as far as we know, there are no current upcoming plans for John in his run, not directly anyway, not as John as Superman, in the way that this book is showing. And I do wonder if maybe he actually has some longer term plans to split the books into two, where after a certain point, Action might be the Clark book and Superman might be the John book, perhaps.
Right.
Possibly.
Yeah, because we do know that in Superman, that John plays a pretty big role. Like in that first arc, it's Superman and Son basically. So, or is that in Action? I
don't remember this at all, Matt, so I can't tell you which one it is.
Well, let me look at next week's comics, because
you'll know if it's in Superman or not.
Yeah, so it looks like John's on that cover, so I think it's in Superman.
There is, I think that's a bit irrelevant though, because those first two issues are like a two-part crossover.
Does anyone expecting me to remember a solicit text for anything until the book comes out is...
Wait, don't tell me Jordan Kent's named after Hal Jordan.
No.
Okay.
That would be funnier though.
I'd be like, wait, I don't even think Clark and Hal are like buddies that way.
And also that Hal, as far as we know, doesn't even exist in that universe.
No, that's why I was thinking of the name Jordan in comics going, and that's the only one that came up.
Look, just stop worrying your brain about it, because this will bother you, and you'll be distracted for the whole episode.
You know that I can't.
Stop thinking about it and go and watch the episode when you finish. You've got time before the hockey starts.
Let's get through the comics.
We're going. All right, so yay, name, whatever on this one, Matt.
A big yay.
Of course, it's a big yay. There's a Superman logo involved. Connor.
I'll give it a yay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I think again the two Future State issues from Johnson are by far like more exciting to me than this, but
3.
2. But hey, so then we have the Green Arrow, Black Canary few pages, which also of course has the return of Roy. Roy is back after Crisis, after Death Metal, and he almost calls or does call but hangs up, and he feels a bit weird about it. But Dinah and Ollie do have a little conversation here about how parts of continuity are sort of coming back into their brain. They're talking about how some of their memories are starting to come back from previous lives, And it has a little tease at the end as well, where she's like, you know what, let's just leave all the cosmic stuff to the Justice League. And he's like, about that. Obviously, clearly, a little joke laid into the fact that they're going to be on the team in Bendis' Justice League, which was nice.
And of course, they pop in as they're doing the deed, and I love that. Diana's like, maybe we don't need to be here right now. I like that, but just the I feel like Williamson, because we know he wrote this, and when we get to another part later, I feel like he was bothered by Heroes in Crisis as much as we were.
Oh sure.
And I feel like he's using his new role as kind of an architect of the current DCU to be like, hey, I'm gonna fix things.
It's basically all gone by the end of this issue.
Yeah, there's nothing that lasts, and this was the big one, because my go-to joke was the only thing that lasted from Heroes in Crisis was the death of poor Roy.
Yes.
And now when I turned the page and he was there, I was shocked, which is always a good,
2 years. But
and
was it even?
Then on top of it,
was it even 2 full years? It feels like more like a year and a half.
I don't know. I'm kind of ballparking, to be honest. I can't remember exactly the timings of Hero Crisis.
And I also feel like he finally throws away that stupid hat that the writer who won't be named, forced onto him in the New 52, and he throws it in the garbage. And now
he also leaves behind his bow. So.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, well, and if this leads to him, because I don't know how much pre-Infinite Crisis stuff that you read, but like he'd gotten rid of the bow because he kind of had a Grayson moment where he was tired of being the sidekick of Green
Arrow.
Arrow.
He changed to being Arsenal, right?
That's when he changed to being Arsenal, and he went to work for Checkmate or the government, one of the two, and he was like, using laser guns and other things.
He's off to
that's why he got the name.
He's off to become Magistrate 1. That's what he's off to do.
I hope not. Although, if they choose to do that, I'm like, oh man.
So
I don't think so.
So yeah, I mean, yay on this one, I would say.
Yeah. Hard to do anything. Just looking at the art.
Yeah.
Malik, hard not to get excited. And I don't know how much he's going to be doing going forward. This is just a fun.
Hey, maybe I'd say he'd do backups in Justice League, but that's where the Justice League Dark stories are going. So maybe this will be more to do with the book with Williamson with the mini or something like that.
We know from what Ram V said with Swamp Thing that if it's successful enough, this is just season 1 of it. So maybe the same with Justice League Dark. If it gets enough of a, it could spin back off into its own title.
I think it's harder because obviously with Swamp Thing, P.S. all of you go to your shops and make sure you buy your copy if you want more of it, which you should. I think what you have to say is it's harder to track because obviously with Swamp Thing they can just look at the direct sales of Swamp Thing and go, all right, this is doing good enough, we'll do more.
Yeah, but word of mouth and stuff too. Like if people get on there and there's enough that are just like, oh man, yeah, the Justice League Dark title, not doing it, I feel like they would change.
It's just a harder metric for them to
but
look at and go, this is worth its own book.
That doesn't mean it's impossible still, So.
But yeah, so next up's a Stargirl story, setting up the miniseries that's coming up soon. This feels relatively separate to everything else. It feels like it's just here to set up the miniseries that's coming up and isn't as, a main part of continuity or a main part of the world.
Also, the most early 2000s art in the entire book.
Yes.
Yeah. John's doing John's things. Like, I'm not mad at that though.
Yeah, Stargirl's, interacting with King Midas. Stripe shows up, and it basically, establishes once again the relationship between her, with Courtney and Pat. We get like a sort of Principal Strickland moment from Back to the Future with her showing up late to school and Pat bailing her out. But then, of course, he gets a call saying the 7 soldiers need him, so he's like, "Hey, there's a reason to ditch school," and they run off.
Question: you guys have watched Stargirl? Did the 7 soldiers play into the show?
Kind of.
Okay. So this is something that John really has at the forefront of his mind.
They're definitely in Pat's history.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you've read was it Stars and Stripes? Is that the book?
Yeah.
If you've read that, it takes one of the plot beats to do with one of the soldiers in that and kind of transpose it directly into the show, more or less. So if you're familiar, then no spoilers there. But beyond that, they're not like a a regular ongoing occurrence. At least
No. But I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
but they may
like,
show up
I just had a
later.
thought that, like, if they're on the forefront of his mind when he was doing the show, he was like, "Hey, maybe comic idea." You know what I mean?
Right. And
Like,
and
it's
this is
spun
the
out
thing
from that.
we know from solicit/interview stuff that there's going to be an 8th soldier all along, and
Right.
we're going to find out
Honestly,
secret history.
It wouldn't surprise me if this miniseries is him workshopping ideas for like season 3 of the show. You know, he's obviously working on season 2 right now. This is just him saying, we need material for seasons 3 and 4, so I'm going to do some
It
miniseries.
would not be surprising.
If you count them all in that group shot, there's already 8.
Is there?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There is. You're right.
Technically, yes. Well, did Pat count as one of the 7? No, I can't remember.
I don't think so, actually.
Yeah.
But
I think
then
it was the
Roy?
7 soldiers, and Pat was just kind of along for the ride at points, right?
Yeah. Pat don't
But then,
count.
okay, who are the 2 sidekicks? Then back there, do they count?
It's not my strength here. I haven't read.
So I wouldn't ask Talking Superman because he was big on Morrison if I should go check out the 7 soldiers. He goes, it's kind of its own thing, the Morrison book.
Yeah, that's a whole thing where it's like each soldier has their own
mini
issue or mini. Yeah,
the mini. If they're each 777 because Grant was working some magic. If you ask me,
and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That I've looked at and I've started to dabble in, but I've never dived all in. And I'm like, I really should at some point.
Yeah. He did tell me to check out the Frankenstein, knowing my taste. That one, even if I don't read the other ones, those 7 issues are a lot of fun and would be right up my alley. So that might be something that I do later. But he said, as far as this team's concerned, they're 2 different.
Yeah, very different
vibes.
Yeah.
know.
I also I really like the animation. I said, it's the most early 2000s.
Right.
That's not a knock on it.
No.
I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really expressive. There's a panel where she's trying to explain to the principal. She's thinking of different excuses. That, again, I think part of this is just fresh on my mind, but it looks straight like one of Garbett's panels from the Stephanie Brown Batgirl stuff. Obviously, we've been doing that on previously, which is why it's fresh, but it looks straight out of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Also, do you guys recognize the name Blue Valley anywhere besides the show, of course?
Besides the show, no. Why?
Yeah, that's the town that Wally West is originally from.
Oh, okay.
When he comes to visit Aunt Iris and gets doused with the chemicals and struck by lightning. So yeah, Blue Valley, Nebraska.
Are we yay on this one?
But if you had to guess, where do you think I am?
I'm assuming Matt's on the yay side.
Matt's on a yay plus for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm fairly yay. I'm not like super excited yay, but yeah.
I'm more. Again, this is one where I'm excited because of what I'm bringing with it. Like, I want more Stargirl. This, it's like 4 pages again. It's fine. On its own, it's enjoyable enough. I actually think this has more substance than a lot of the stories do because it has like a little fight scene with Midas, and then it's got some of the school life. So it gives me a balance of what it's actually supposed to be with the superheroics balanced with the school stuff.
Right, it's a proper short story versus just a tease.
Yeah,
like they'll include this in the trade. Whereas I'm not 100% certain a lot of the other ones you'd actually get a lot out of it.
I mean, I think the Batman 2 parts will probably be in the trade.
Yeah, but that's or even Yara and her stuff. You would see that popping up.
Depends what that might or might not. It depends on where the first issue actually starts.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Where this feels like it would definitely be, almost like the Zero. Like back in the day, you used to be able to mail in from Wizard like half issues that were kind of stuff like this.
It's the sort of thing that they might put these few pages before the credits page for the trade. They might have like a little sort of like prologue, and then have the credits and whatnot.
And it'll be really consistent because I think Enoch's on art for the at least the next one shot that we're getting as well, if not beyond that. So it won't feel out of place.
Yeah, I think I said mini earlier. Yeah, it's a one shot we're getting, but yeah, the Stargirl thing coming.
We're just assuming there's a mini coming after us, really, aren't we?
Yeah. So then we get back to the Batman stuff. Batman arrives at Arkham, or he's on his way to Arkham. He's not quite there yet. And we have whoever the villain is with this kind of tan narration box with the sort of scratchy black text,
Mhm.
sort of narrating about how Gotham is changing. It needs to evolve. The people in it need to evolve. They need to be more scared. And Mahoney is a bit of a hero. He saves a couple of nurses that he's found just before an explosion in the Arkham. And he loses an arm. Batman comes and finds him, and he's sitting. And a leg, actually. I didn't even noticed the leg before.
Oh, dang.
I think what I like about this is that it shows that, given the whole story is about how Gotham needs to move beyond relying on people with masks, I do like that a regular guard actually saves the day for a couple of. I mean, obviously he loses a lot in the process,
Right.
but he actually saves these two nurses before Batman gets there, and it's proper heroic.
And his first question as he's losing consciousness is, "Did the nurses make it?"
Yeah, they okay. So it's
Yeah.
I thought it was a neat little beat that thematically ties in. And Batman, the police try to arrest Batman. He's like, look, there's 17 people potentially still inside. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get whoever I can. And that's when we cut to some of the other stuff, and we're introduced to this Mr. Saint.
Simon Saint.
Simon Saint from
with his weirdly big head.
Yes.
Wait, is it Simon?
Saint Industries. Yes.
I think it is, because I remember that because when I first read it, it wasn't in this book. I read it in an interview, and I thought it was going to say, yeah, Simon Stagg.
Right.
And it didn't, and it threw me.
Yeah.
Isn't Simon Saint the name of the Saint old character too?
Of what?
There's a character called there's a Val Kilmer movie called The Saint that was based on an old TV show, and I feel like his name was Simon Saint as well.
I mean, it's alliterated, so it's a good chance someone else has come up with Simon Saint at some point.
That's why I thought, was it Simon? I couldn't remember if they actually say it in the issue or if I just
This is
in there.
definitely Simon Saint.
Okay.
It's said on the next page.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Oh, there it is.
So yes, so basically, he's the one who wants to start the magistrate program. He's behind setting it up, but the city needs to be more scared before they'll accept and open their arms willingly to it. And that's when we reveal the new look Scarecrow on the final page of this. He's the one helping get everyone scared, and presumably we think he's behind the Arkham Joker toxin attack,
Yep.
to drive up the fear. So
Which is why it might actually be Joker toxin, just used by Scarecrow.
But, well, I'm thinking it's adjusted, and that's why they're like, well, it's not typical Joker, right? Like, they're not laughing; they're already dead with smiles on their face, which makes me wonder if he altered it and it is a.
Do you think there's an element of? So again, this isn't that far fetched, but like drugs that can make you seem basically dead.
Yeah.
And the idea that now Bane has risen from the dead, is scary to people,
right? Yeah, and so it's almost like an adapted Joker Scarecrow hybrid gas, right? Where it made him see everybody, that way. Mahoney.
I'm sure
because he's the only one in there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only one running around that we get to see.
Well, right.
The only thing against that is Batman's reading saying there's only 17 alive, so we're assuming that
that's after the explosion.
True.
So.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah.
I mean, we spoke about obviously this look of Scarecrow when they first revealed it whenever ago, but there is some elements that are a little bit over the top, but I will say I do love the gas mask. The actual mask I think looks great.
I think it's only over the top for this reveal.
Yeah.
I think they kind of went above and beyond for the reveal page. I don't think it will feel as over the top when we're just seeing it in regular usage.
Yeah, but it is a bit scarier than what typical Joker or
big time.
Scarecrow has been in
I
recent
also
years.
get he's a cult leader vibe, there's just something about him.
Well, he's a cult of personality, Matt.
True.
Yes.
I love that after Paul White made that announcement, Punk instantly took to Twitter and goes, "It's not me. The Blackhawks are playing on Sunday." That watching his favorite hockey team play is far more important than showing up at a wrestling show.
Yes, but if he was trying to swerve us,
wrestling stuff.
If he was trying to swerve us, that's what he would say.
Let me just say, Pete, if it is him, you'll be the first to know, and you'll probably hear it.
Yes, I'll probably hear it from the distance.
Yes.
The yell that happens. I don't think it is for the record, but yes.
I don't either. That's why. But I did love that the Blackhawks are on. Not that hey, I'm doing anything important.
Yes. I mean, it's obviously David Arquette, but let's move on. So yes, I'm still on the bat stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Scarecrow. My Bat villains go up and down, and over the time I've realized Ivy's not so much a villain, right, anymore.
No.
So I think Scarecrow, Two-Face kind of top that list. So I'm 100% in for Tynion's. If he can do what he did for Clayface, but in reverse, where he could make Scarecrow an actual scary character, I'm here for that.
Yeah, that's cool. Green Lantern's next, and I will say it's not the best few pages of the book, but I will say I am far more optimistic about the series than I was after reading the first issue of the Future State book by this writer, because this actually gave me some of the premise. It's Simon and John, and they're going to Oa in a ship with young Kelly, a Teen Lantern, who has to learn about everything. And it's basically just building up to her seeing Oa for the first time, and it's a cool moment for her. I will say, when they bring up like Hal, Jess, and Kyle all being away, like monitoring the new planets and stuff, I was like, you just kind of listed some of my favorites that I'd rather be following. But I mean, it's get the education of Kelly and give these characters some more time.
Guy got a Superboy treatment, and I don't like that.
Oh, guy's not important; it doesn't matter. So
bull crap. Yeah. So
maybe it's because Guy is actually down on Oa already, and that's why he's not somewhere else. There's no need to mention that he's off on some other world. He's down there.
Oh, sure.
As a Guy Gardner fan, it makes me a little bit suspicious.
He's running the bar down there.
Fine, if that's what it is when we get there. It's not a big hang up because it's cool to see Simon back.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen him in years at this point. Because at least Jess we had in Odyssey.
At least if you were reading that, but
but Simon she was there.
Yeah,
Simon wasn't anywhere. So to see him show back up with John and Teen Lantern, and
I do like them continuing with Teen Lantern. That even though Bendis is away from her now, like they're saying, no, we have this character who was given a modified, like almost like pirated Green Lantern energy like device. Like that's a mystery, and they're going to investigate it and take her to Oa. And
I have a question.
Yes.
What am I forgetting? Because when did we get back to Oa?
That's new because it's been Mogo.
Yeah, that's why I was just saying, Joe. Like, this whole conversation we've been saying Oa because it's Oa in the book.
There's Oa, yeah.
Think about it.
Crisis. We just had a reboot.
No, we just had a crisis. But Mogo's there.
Because Mogo's next. And I'm like,
which
Oa
goes against Mogo in that the whole original Mogo appearance of Mogo doesn't socialize, right?
Mogo has grown since then.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Oa's grown.
Look at it this way, right? Reality got rewritten because of the Anti-Crisis, and Oa came back, so it's like Mogo's just there. Maybe Mogo won't stick around. Mogo's just like helping Oa make sure everything's okay, and then Mogo's going to leave.
He's dropping everyone off.
Yes.
Yeah.
But neat. So no, I mean, there's a lot of little things I liked here. I liked Simon and John talking about Kelly, talking about why they're in a ship rather than just flying. Talking about the mystery of where her power comes from. Like, I'm like, you know what? This is not like directionless like that first issue of the Future State book was. This actually seems like it might be a good series if it feels like this.
I almost felt like Thorne felt like, well, Future State stuff I can kind of do whatever I want with, and it doesn't have to be indicative of my thing. So you can almost keep it closer to the vest. But this rekindled like my love of Green Lantern. That's because it's been missing from my life for a while now, and like just seeing like Simon and then Mogo just in that I mean, at the end
maybe
hanging around, I was like, oh yeah, I loved this section of the DCU.
Like maybe it still won't be that good. Maybe we'll try issue 1 and it won't be that great. But I'm far less miserable about trying issue 1 now after these few pages of like, oh, this is actually kind of what I imagined it was going to feel like.
Right. This feels like Green Lantern, whereas the Future State issue we read, outside the Guy story, which I felt that was almost, Twilight Zone Green Lantern. This feels very much Green Lantern. Even the fact that they're using a ship, which kind of looks like Abin Sur's ship.
Well, I wasn't even thinking of the back. I was just thinking of the main story by the writer who's doing the book.
No, I know that, but that didn't feel Green Lantern at all. It felt like closer to something like Omega Men, But yeah.
I don't even care what it felt like. It was just badly written because nothing happened.
Sure.
That was my problem with it. You can feel whatever you want to a point. I mean, not really, but I mean, I would take that if it still felt like a good story. But it didn't.
I'm just saying. I'm happy to have a Green Lantern vibe again.
I mean, Connor's been quiet, so Connor clearly hates this.
No, I don't hate it. I just don't have any strong feelings on it. I think it's
Do you have any strong feelings on anything in this book?
Honestly, no, and that's part of the problem.
Said that, but again, I don't.
I have strong feelings about things that are coming after this book, in that it presents a lot of ideas that excite me. But as a whole, I think it's a very unexciting issue in itself.
I like that it's a tease. The whole, like, this is a 64-page tease for the future of DC, and I'm okay with that. And you're getting little bites. It's like a sampler platter at a restaurant.
Yeah, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this when it's done, because there's no point in talking about the overall thing yet.
And as for this particular story, part of this is still my negative impression on the previous stuff. I have no experience with Kelly, Tynion at all, so that's all new to me here. It's it's fine. I don't hate these 3 pages. I just don't particularly like them either. Yeah. I
mean, I think it does a good job if you've never read any Kelly stuff before. I think this completely sets up the things you need to know for what the ongoing story is going to be with her.
Yeah. Even as if you read the stuff around her, she's getting a quick history of the Green Lantern Corps. So even if you're new to Green Lantern, you're kind of getting quick beats here like she is reading those. So it's a pretty great introduction to her character. And even when you get to the last page and she says Esta Pintura, which means like this is like a painting, so this is the first time she's seen space things, that we're all kind of used to, but her perspective is fresh.
And on that, even just her reacting to everything for the first time does make it very new Green Lantern reader friendly in a lot of ways, because you can use her as a conduit for all your first time experiences. So there's a lot of things going on for this, which I think is a good sign for Green Lantern to come. So here's hoping that the main book is actually going to stick this. So I'm actually more yay than I thought I was going to be on this one, Matt. I guess you're feeling yay.
I am too.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of I know Thorne doesn't like Hal, and I like Hal a whole lot, but if he's going to use that as an opportunity to showcase other lanterns, great.
Do you know what?
We need that. We have so many of them. Why not? Hal's had his turn.
Hal's been focused on so much for the last goddamn 15 years. You know what? He can take a back seat.
I'm always hesitant when I hear a writer hates a character. And I know they're just doing it for effect or whatever, but
But and I think what's interesting about this particular case is he's been vocal about his hatred of Hal over years, well before getting the gig. It's not like he's just like, I got the gig. And I was like, I don't like Hal, by the way. This is something that's kind of part of his personality in general when it comes to his
I prefer that.
He can't still tell an effective story, but it's like I wouldn't give Pete a Red Hood story if I was an editor.
Yeah,
right. Because he doesn't like Jason Todd.
But so, to that previous point though, I prefer that's consistent with what he's been saying for years. Right. I think it's actually more annoying if they've never said anything, then they just go, oh, by the way, I hate this character when they get the gig.
I'm not saying it's again. I don't think he's doing a bad thing that he hates Hal. He's perfectly allowed to hate Hal.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, there's characters we all hate, right? But I think the difference is we're not suddenly writing characters very much in that wheelhouse and related to that. And that's where it comes out.
Think about DiDio writing Dick Grayson, right?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue as long as they don't force him to write lots of Hal stuff. And I mean, the premise of his book right now has Hal nowhere near it.
Is great until you remember this is DC editorial and they love Hal.
Well, but again, like Pete pointed out, Hal has been the focus for how many years now? And what's great with Green Lantern, that's what I was going to get to with DiDio and Nightwing. Let's say he's writing Nightwing. It's not like you can sub out another Nightwing. At least with Green Lantern, you can, there's John and Simon, now Kelly, then you have Jess and Guy and Kyle, or, any number of the alien lanterns, right? So that he can play with. So it's not just Hal here. So
it's not Hal at all. It's not even the premise of the book, which is why I don't even think it's an issue. It's not even.
No, but to me, it is a little bit like I hear that coming from a creative, and it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Because I mean, let's say Humphrey said that when he took on Green Lanterns back at the start of Rebirth. It wouldn't Hal like had like maybe a
It
cameo at some point in that like 50 issue plus run?
I
think
wouldn't have liked it then either.
Here's the thing, though. It doesn't have direct impact on the story that he's telling, I'm sure, in that Hal isn't showing up. But that in itself is probably a reaction to he doesn't like Hal. So Hal won't have parts where, even if we think there should be Hal at this moment, they won't be there. It would be kind of like in 10 years' time, hypothetically, John is Superman. Clark is retired for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And whoever's writing them doesn't like Clark Kent, but is writing John as Superman. We'd be like, well, this doesn't feel right. You know, we don't necessarily like that. Even though Clark's not the focus of this story, it still feels a bit weird. And I think that's kind of where this comes in for a lot of people, is that even if this isn't a Hal story, the fact that Hal is such a big part of the Green Lantern mythos, to dislike Hal to a lot of Green Lantern fans feels like that he must dislike a lot of Green Lantern elements, and that's where their concern comes in.
I think there's tons of Green Lantern fans that hate Hal Jordan, just like there's tons of Flash fans who hate how Barry Allen hogs the spotlight. So it's kind of a weird thing, especially since I don't necessarily think if a writer loves a character, let's say a writer loves, Jess, a writer loves, Kyle, but hates Hal Jordan, should they never get to write Kyle or Jess because they should be disqualified because they don't like Hal Jordan? I disagree with that sentiment completely.
No,
the
whole reason we have Barry Allen back is because Johns loves Barry Allen. It was his favorite character.
But what I'm trying to say,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make though is I don't think a writer who loves Kyle Rayner should be disqualified from writing Kyle Rayner because they hate Hal Jordan. I don't think that should ever be.
He's easily the worst Earth Lantern, so I think it should.
Shut up! That's not the point I'm making.
Again, I'm playing devil's advocate because I don't really feel this way, but I think the argument comes in that sure, you can do a Kyle Rayner book as a Green Lantern, that's fine in this scenario, but this is a general Green Lantern book where it's got a lot of the core involved as well. So the fact that by its nature Hal should be at some point probably involved, they're worried that then it will either avoid Hal because he doesn't want to write Hal, or he'll write Hal badly. That's where their concern comes in.
Yeah. Until that is actually committed, it's kind of assuming someone is guilty of something before they actually do it. So.
True, and that's where
you're saying comics readers are reasonable people.
I mean, Shazam was a thing because of this. So
that wasn't comic readers. That was comics journalism. That's
Oh no!
Add quotes, please.
He doesn't consider himself a journalist anymore. He actively refutes that statement that he is not a journalist. He is a reporter. There is a difference, apparently.
Oh, good Lord. I don't like that guy.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on, please.
It's getting late now.
The Flash story. Hey, I've been keeping this brisk. It's not my fault. There's been weird debates brought up about stupid things. All right. And Connor being like just unbearably negative all the time for no goddamn reason.
I was being quiet because I didn't want to be, incredibly negative.
Yes, but when he's being quiet, I know it's because he's going to be negative or otherwise.
Howard Porter art on Flash is something I'm okay with. So seeing this here,
it's not his best. He's got. A couple...
I don't like that very first.
Yeah,
panel.
It's a weird face in that first panel. It's kind of ugly, to be honest. I'm
glad I'm not alone because I've been probably more critical.
You guys do this to me, where I'm just reading and I skim, like not skim, but I'm reading. I don't pay attention to that. And then you guys point it out. Now I can't unsee it.
Look at his face. It's like
I know.
Harry's abs throughout the entire story are just all over the place.
Anyway. So this is the thing. I am not enthusiastic about the Flash book going forward because the premise from the solicits does not sound pleasant. However, this story has Barry saying to Wally, "Hey, you're the Flash now because I'm going to go off and investigate the multiverse." Mm-hmm. So this is doing, in theory, what a lot of us wanted for such a goddamn long time. That. Like, it makes me want to hope, but also the premise of the Flash book seems a bit iffy, so I'm not sure. It's weird. I don't know how to feel about this.
And again, this is part of the Williamson rehab of post Heroes in Crisis, that through Metal, where we got the Wally stuff there that's been fixed. Now to this, where he's turning the keys back over to him, was like, hey, you're Flash while I was gone. You're more than capable of it. I'm going to go do some other stuff. And, you have fun, man.
I'm not gonna lie. When it got to the full pitch spread, because Wally's saying, "Yeah, but what about you? Can't just leave. Who'll be the Flash?" And he goes to the full pitch spread, and Barry says, "You're the Flash now, Wally." I read it as, "You're the Flash now, dog." Just because memes. That's an early meme. You're the man down now, dog, was like the earliest meme on the internet. Just for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Hey, guys, good at Photoshop. Go ahead and add that and then send it to Pete.
Yes. Oh, please do.
I don't think it'll take him long.
Yeah.
I know.
Just a bit of text. So, I mean, so I like what it's doing in that sense. I like what, this passing of the torch and Barry letting Wally be the Flash again properly is something I like. This is one where it's more just that the ongoing book from the Solicits doesn't seem like it still feels like it's doing things that I'm going to dislike. I'm going to obviously give it a chance, but my enthusiasm is definitely dampened by that. But hey,
so let's overanalyze this big page as Diana
I knew
Inspector.
this was going to happen.
well, how are we feeling about the Hunt? But before we move on, how are we feeling about the Flash story?
Yeah, closer to, well, now that I know that Williamson is using that to bridge onto Infinite Frontier, like, still not in on the Flash main title, so I want to give it a full yay, but
Skeptical.
I'll put it in the middle.
Skeptical.
Yeah, I'm excited by the idea of the Flash working with the other place, the other people in the House of Heroes, whatever that team's called. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But all that stuff excites me a
In
lot.
fact,
Really building on that Morrison stuff.
Is this the story where they name the other planet in the center? That's because the two planets, one's the Elseworld, the other one is Earth Omega. Is that this story?
Did we not have this name in?
We had Earth Omega already, because there's Earth Alpha, right, and there's Earth Omega now. So this might be the first Earth Omega, but I remember at the end of Metal there was Earth Alpha, because it was a whole thing.
Oh, you're thinking of the Elseworld.
It's the Elseworld. It was never called Earth Alpha.
I don't remember Earth Alpha. Did I just
Because I thought it was
Mandela
Earth
affected?
Omega, and it's Omega in the Elseworld.
I
Yeah.
remember Earth Alpha.
They never called it Earth Alpha. I have no idea what you're talking about, man.
I just got Mandela affected.
There was two planets. One's close to Earth, so they're calling that the Elseworld. That was what was at the end of Death Metal.
Right.
And then this is naming the other one. This is naming the second one as Earth Omega.
Maybe I'm also being Mandela affected because I was convinced that I knew this name already.
No, that's. I mean, this is the first time I read this. This was new to me.
I wonder if maybe it was in some sort of interview or article that had mentioned it before, because I knew
Maybe.
this.
Maybe it was in an article, yeah, but it was definitely not in any of the books before now.
Okay.
At least the ones I read.
Assumed it was in.
All I know is that Earth Omega must have a ton of 5-star matches.
It's the best bout planet. It's the best bout planet.
The best bout planet. PvP.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's got barbed wire everywhere.
Yeah. Then there's a golden planet. You put them together.
Maybe a golden moon. Maybe it's got a golden moon. That.
Golden moon. There you
go. I love just how lost Connor is right now.
I'm like, what's going on? And you give me shit for throwing stuff out.
I feel that if Connor watched wrestling, he'd love Kenny Omega. That's all.
Maybe.
So yeah.
I have no idea what you guys just said. That was a lot of gibberish.
Did you just forget words? Because like literally, they're all English words.
They were all English words, but none of it made any sense.
Oh jeez.
Look, it's fine. There's the three sides of hell. There's going to be exploding barbed wire, and Moxley's going to be gloriously taken out via a fake injury to go be a baby daddy.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's not even going to be fake though, because I know Moxley is a human being who likes to hurt himself. So
poor Renee's going to have to take care of him whilst taking care of a newborn because he's going to be like so injured. From I can't wait. We're recording this a day before Revolution, and I'm excited. Okay, there's excitement. All right, so as a Flash story, skeptical is the word I'd go back to for that one. So yeah, there's a page of Spectre and Wonder Woman walking through just various things in the multiverse happening. Kind of maybe some of it's implying some things, some of it's maybe callbacks to other things.
Some are obviously teases for stuff to come.
I mean, Supergirl's holding a sword, which is clearly a reference to the Superwoman book.
That is just the cover, isn't it?
Well, it's different artist, but yeah, it's just
it's different artist, but it is the version of that.
Yeah.
As, you know,
I
look at my lock screen on my phone.
Yeah, the Swamp Thing, it looks like a tease of the Swamp Thing book. You've got
Yeah,
the
you got-
Titans.
Yeah, you've got Lobo and Crush, which we
Mhm.
definitely spoke about in some book or another.
Deathstroke looking like he's being Hamlet. You know,
Yeah.
to kill or not to kill? That's the question.
Yeah, you got some Justice League Dark stuff going on.
Yeah. So the one that stuck out to me, you guys want to guess?
Yeah, no, I think it's clear because it's the blue and gold, and I'm like, where is this from?
Yeah. What? Like, come on, man.
That's on an Earth that is being erased from the timeline.
How dare you? But, I mean,
How dare
see,
you, sir.
most of them I can kind of point through, like Shazam. That stuff might even tie in with the Titan stuff potentially.
Or
given-
Justice League, because Black Adam's in that.
Rock of Eternity, right?
Yeah.
That's fighting in the
Right.
back. And it looks a
What
little
is
bit
that on
different.
the left of the Shazam panel? I can't quite make it out underneath the text bubbles.
So it looks like some type of like. At first, I thought it was Wildcat, and I'm like, well, that's not Wildcat.
Yeah, is it maybe Midnighter?
Maybe, but the suit looks a little bit off. But yeah, like zooming in on my tablet, I was able to get more. You know that it's not Wildcat. So, but it is someone beating the absolute piss out of somebody. So maybe it's Midnighter. But
Maybe there's the Aquaman stuff, which we don't have an Aquaman book yet.
No.
Announced, do we?
But they look so happy. So let's just let them be happy
And
right now.
I think what should be interesting to most of us is the Green Lantern panel, which features all the lanterns that aren't going to be in the Green Lantern book.
Which perhaps suggests there'll be a Green Lantern Corps book or something akin for all the other lanterns.
I mean, things
And,
we've been yelling that we should have for the past 3 years is have 2 Lantern books.
Yes.
You know what? I'm okay with Jess being swapped out with John Stewart for the 4 Corpsmen. That's a good look.
I'd rather she replace Kyle.
No.
I mean, we only need one sensitive Green Lantern there, right? And I'd rather have her sensitivity issues than him being a
I would
sensitive
rather
party.
get rid of the guy.
Oh, I'm an artist.
Of course, we knew you were gonna go there.
I think Guy should go and Kilowog should replace Guy because he's a more interesting hard-ass Green Lantern.
Guy's the wild card. Every team's got to have a wild card.
Right. He's the Arn. You know?
Is Arn the wild card?
I don't know. But I feel like he's the one that kind of keeps them together because that's what that whole story was in the special. You know what I mean? And that to me, with the 4 Horsemen, that was always Arn. You know, everyone else came and went.
And you know what?
It was always Rick and Arn.
Connor can't say shit, but that's because there was a direct reference to the 4 Horsemen in Green Lantern at one point with the 4 Corpsmen. Yeah. So this is all very relevant comparison sake.
It is very relevant.
Which is why I wasn't going to say anything because I know that's what it's referencing. Although obviously, the 4 Horsemen as an idea has been around like 1,000 years, give or take, probably.
Yes, but that's not what the reference in the book was. It was to the wrestlers.
I know. Yeah. I know.
4 legs on a table.
But I mean, Hal's Ric Flair, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we've gone through this before.
Yeah.
The amount of women. Come on. Gotta be.
I mean, I'll never read that Vendetta run because I know that after that reference, all I want Hal to do is to chop someone in the chest and go woo, and he doesn't do it. I know he doesn't do it, so I'm just not going to read it.
But you know what? I'm sure Guy spine busted somebody. I'm sure him and Arkillo. So.
Oh dear.
Anyway.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's that page. But yeah. So Wonder Woman. It sounds like she's agreeing to take the job, and then she's like, "No, I'm not taking this job. You misunderstand me.
Take this job and shove it."
Yeah, you've just shown me that all these people are going to a new infinite frontier, so I'm going to be there to guide them there. Like I'm going into this new chapter. We get this great 2-page spread of the. This is basically remember the 2-page rebirth spread of all the characters. Yep. This is essentially Infinite Frontiers version of that. Now, not everyone is there, but most people are there. Because there's definitely some people you can look for that you won't find if you really try. But notably, next Batman's there as well as regular Batman.
Yeah.
And so on.
I will say almost all my favorites are represented, so I'm okay.
What was I looking for? Because I was delighted that I'm forgetting now. I don't know. Because I looked at the page, really in depth when I first saw it.
Some of the interesting ones to me, of where we don't know where they're going to show up. Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Batwoman.
Batwoman, fair. Raven's probably just Titans Academy, though. I'd have thought.
Maybe, but we haven't had any mention of her with that yet. But I mean, makes sense, I suppose. Vixen.
Yeah, Vixen could be a number of places. Yeah, Steel maybe as well is the one that sticks out to me. A little bit different.
Where's Steel?
He's a bit.
Where is
John.
Raven?
Oh no, he's up there. Yeah.
Raven's,
What were you saying, Matt?
Raven's under Batman.
Where's Raven?
Under Batman. Bully's knee.
Oh, okay. Oh, that is Raven.
Yeah, I know it's Raven.
No. In my head, I always look for purple and stuff with Raven, like your signature.
There's a
Matt,
purple
that is so Raven.
That is so Raven. I just got a flash of the future, and now I got to prevent it.
I've never even seen that so Raven, but I thought of the joke, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Either have I, but my wife watches it, so you know.
Of course, your wife, who's a teenage girl, and of course watches such things on Disney Channel.
I had to tell her today. I am done. I am done listening to Taylor Swift in the car.
Hey, I want
last year.
Hold on, Matt. I want the audio listeners to know that Matt, before he started that sentence, looked over his shoulder to make sure he couldn't be heard.
That was what that pause. Oh, that is the best moment we've had in months.
Yeah. She is sneaky, and I
just that pause. Like, am I safe? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was the Peel and Key sketch of calling their wives bitches. It was just like,
and I said,
bitch.
You said that? Yeah.
I think it was only as funny though because it was really organic. Like I don't think he planned that. To be funny, he just genuinely checked for his own safety.
Yeah, I both can be true.
Dear.
But no.
Yes. So
anyways,
so the epilogue, which unfortunately, I mean, what's in the epilogue is perfectly fine. Unfortunately, the art just completely.
Oh, thank God for the lettering.
I know.
Before we move on, so if she had joined with the Quintessence, would she have replaced somebody, or would they become the Sextessence? No, seriously. Like,
it's a good question. No, it is a good question because who would she have replaced? I mean, she probably would have replaced Hera, right?
You would think.
You would think. So that's why I wonder.
Unless the old wizard's looking to retire.
Right.
Oh, I remember what it was. So I was happy to see spoiler at the bottom, but I couldn't find Cass. That was my thought when I looked at this page.
Cass not somewhere on one of the sides.
I don't think so. Donna Troy's there though.
I couldn't see her.
I mean, she's the big Bat family member that is kind of missing here.
Yeah.
Everyone else, even Duke's there.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
Yeah.
It was just a minor thing, not a big deal. But yeah, so we hear the Quintessence talking to someone, and it's someone saying that no matter what, I am the end, I am the final, but I am finite. And the implication I got here from this, because I mean, it turns out to be Darkseid, right? That's the big final page, who looks awful in JRJR's art. But the big thing I was getting here is that this is a Darkseid who's more powerful than he's ever been because he now has all of continuity, like in his head. Like he remembers everything. He's every version of Darkseid that's ever been.
I love that he's turned all roads lead to Rome into just about him.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Which is the most Darkseid thing you can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Darkseid is.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And I am so glad I didn't have to rely on the art for this reveal because as soon as we're talking about Earth Omega and then you have the big black box or bubble with the white text, and I'm like, I know this. I know who this is from just that link alone.
But still, you know, outside the art, it is very well paced out by Williamson.
It is, but the reveal from the lettering was more exciting to me than the reveal. That's why I'm grateful for
There's so much of this like Infinite Frontier stuff that feels a little fresh to me, and it feels like, okay, we're in a new era. It feels like we're post a reset of some kind. But it's kind of exciting because this is the first one in a long time where it feels like it's incorporating all of past continuity. That's kind of part of the what's special about it. But this Darkseid reveal where he's talking about how he's the most powerful he's ever been because he has all of his past continuity intact and together is the one big thing that it feels like, okay, this is us really getting one of those juicy new details because continuity has maybe reset's not the word in this case, but like reformed.
Right.
And we should point out that in this story, it's not just a reveal of Darkseid. He is seemingly killing the Quintessence.
Yes, he's killed the Quintessence, and I don't know if he's absorbed their power or he's just like got his power in his hands.
Had Diana would have been there, she would have slapped him back down. You know. So he's lucky she wasn't there.
Yes.
They caught him off guard though. Like, it's all the spikes coming from behind them.
So
Sam Stranger and Spectre get an extra second of warning, but even though.
And this is also the cost, right? That Diana was worried about is something's coming for the DCU, and well, I mean, you could roll your eyes and say it's just Darkseid again, but I do kind of like this way they've framed it as like, no, this is Darkseid with all of his past versions intact, kind of thing.
Yeah, so we had learned in New 52 that when it came to the to the Fifth World stuff, there was only one of them, right? There wasn't a multiverse of those characters. So Darkseid had always he was extra multiversal, being that there was only one Darkseid. So now the fact that there's been Darkseids over time, and he has access to all of that power, that's a nice little wrinkle.
Yeah, because I have to
amp him up.
I have to assume that the whole baby Darkseid reborn into Darkseid is all gone now, and we're just the
Darkseid.
This is just plain Darkseid now.
This is Darkseid. He's absorbed all of the forms of every Darkseid we've ever seen to become one Megazord Darkseid.
Yeah, but given that it's always meant to have been a version of Darkseid, though, right? So. Yeah. This is not the baby that's grown up. This is now just true Darkseid. And yes,
he has absorbed that baby.
Yes,
that version happened.
I get, that did happen. I get that. But what I'm saying is that this is not that baby growing up anymore. This is true Darkseid, who's incorporated all the other little versions that have came along the way. But
yeah, so it strikes out too that the thing I want to talk about earlier with Williamson was he started off Justice League Odyssey, right? Mm-hmm. He had an intent of using Darkseid as he went to that, the Lost Sector type deal.
Darkseid as Hannibal Lecter was his kind of pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But as you found out as it went, is that Darkseid was using that to reform his power. That he was using like this power of belief through all these different planets to amp him back up. So I feel like this is kind of where Williamson was going before things kind of went sideways. That he, for whatever reason, he stopped on that book, and then that book just kept going. And,
I think just to tack on to that point, I think it's fair to say that Infinite Frontier this month and going forward is the true start of the post-Didio era, in the sense that this is where they've had time to plan and start their stories, what they wanted to do. For the new editors and whatnot. Like this is where it begins.
I'm wondering if something like Infinite Frontier was planned before all this, and then it got sidetracked with whatever,
It was 5G. That was what was planned before this.
But 5G was always a little bit different, I felt too. It wasn't necessarily the same.
I get what Matt's saying here. He's saying that if Williamson had a vague plan to do something like this with Darkseid at some point, he's now finally getting to reframe it in this new light.
Right.
And maybe that's why he left that book in the first place, is to kind of slap down his plans.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. So, I'm here for that. So I made that connection when I was reading this. I was like, oh man, it's kind of similar to Justice League Odyssey, Darkseid, who's trying to, subvert the power of belief to make himself even more powerful. Which is very Darkseid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super into Infinite Frontier, this one shot as a whole, because it makes me excited for just the scope of what the DC Universe is doing. Going forward, I'm super into it. And, we get to this checklist page essentially for what's coming up. Obviously, March is just packed with everything that's returning. So you get Action Comics, Batman, Superman, Batman Urban Legends, Detective Comics, Catwoman, Flash, Harley Quinn, Joker, Justice League, Nightwing, Suicide Squad, Superman, Swamp Thing, Teen Titans Academy, and Wonder Woman. And then it's just April's just Green Lantern issue 1, Maze, Mr. Miracles, Mini, Robin, Stargirl, Wonder Girl, Ninja, Supergirl. An Infinite Frontier issue 1. It just says coming this summer, but
it's July. It said it before the epilogue.
What?
It's just the previous page. So it's at the end of the bottom of the Darkseid page, coming in July.
The article said June.
The article said June.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it said.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now in the book.
I see it. I see it. I looked at it when you said it. Right. I'm not believing you.
I don't remember reading in the article, to be honest.
This is a fun conversation.
Oh, well, it's him. He has to, I get what he's saying. I've looked at the book.
Just
cool.
Oh my god, you're the worst son. I don't even care if he's right. He's still a prick, right?
Again, this is why he would love Kenny Omega. Don't care if he's right. He's still a prick.
There's being right and there's being a prick, and those are not mutually exclusive, right?
Not at all.
I never said they were.
Not at all.
Cool.
Right.
What's we rating this?
Yes, we are rating. Yes. Hold on. I'm finding this article again. Yeah, Matt, read it.
Oh my god, the need of you guys both to be right.
Well, I left it. I'm not even looking.
Read the book. I'm just looking for. Well, I'm not doing this to be right. I'm doing this to give the correct information to the audience. Okay. I am doing this out of professionalism. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, go on, Matt. Go on, Matt. Read it.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you were gonna drop the info.
I can drop the info after you've rated.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give this a very high 8. I enjoyed the majority of this, so can't give it higher because of JRJR art there at the end. Like, I just can't.
Yes.
You know.
I can't argue with that logic.
Oh.
Yes. Well, the start of the article says leads to Infinite Frontier issue 1 in June, so that's how the article starts. So I knew I wasn't imagining this. Where are we? Infinite Frontier will launch June 22nd according to DC.
They changed their mind after printing.
Yeah, I knew I read June 22nd. I knew I did.
Okay.
All right, so Connor's wrong and a prick. Great.
I wasn't wrong. The issue was wrong.
Best possible outcome. Best possible outcome.
At no point did I say the article was wrong. I just said the issue says July. That's not me wrong. That's the issue.
Hashtag
wrong.
Hashtag Conroe was wrong. Conroe was wrong. That's your hashtag. Right? How are you giving it, Connor?
I'm giving it a 5. No, this is. I actually. I don't know if I tweeted it or if I put it on a Facebook message to someone. This was the blandest issue that has ever gotten me so excited for stuff. I did not enjoy reading this. I thought it was a horrible experience with all the fragmented, and the through line was really rough at best with the Wonder Woman and Spectre stuff. There are moments I like and individual stories that I like. Sure, some of these are okay, but for the most part, none of them were enough to satisfy anything. And I kind of just felt like, is that it at the end? But I'm also excited for all the things that it's coming from it. So that's why it gets the 5.
I don't think the through line in this is really that much weaker than the through line of Rebirth issue 1. Now, Rebirth issue 1's a better issue. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're equal.
I think the key difference for me between the two, because I can actually give you a quantifiable thing here, is Rebirth had emotion and to what it was doing with Wally. Not just for me caring about Wally, but it was about Wally reconnecting with people. And he was actually physically attempting to break through all issue. That was what the struggle was from a character point of view. Whereas Wonder Woman is just an observer. I
agree, that's why it's better, but I don't think that this is as soulless as your description would make it. I'm excited for so much that this is set up. I'm excited for the DCU going forward. And yeah, so I'm going to. I'll agree with Matt and give it the straight 8. And I think that art in the last epilogue does kind of. It probably would have been at least an 8.5 if it wasn't for that last epilogue's art. Just put that out there. Batman issue 106. James Tynion IV writing and Jorge Jiminez on the art. On the main story, of course, we'll get to the backup separately. So this is returning to Tynion's run, but it is very much a new status quo that's set up where he has got much less money. He's living in a more normal place, slumming it, as one of his neighbors.
He's got an apartment.
Puts it. And before Connor gets into his negativity, because Connor said on Twitter that he wanted to complain about something on like page 2.
Yeah.
I really like this issue. I love a lot of what it's setting up for Gotham wide. So I'm going to let Connor go first because I would rather go on to the positivity after.
That's fair. Mine is actually, it's a very specific complaint because actually I have a lot of good things to say about this book as well. So we'll get into those. But the one thing I absolutely do have a real problem with is some of the lettering. Specifically the lettering to do with the Scarecrow stuff. and anyone where it's or Bruce when he's affected by the fear gas, it has a drop shadow effect along with kind of being like a wavy to go, give it this odd feeling. And I get the effect they're going for, but I think it's actually really hard to read. It looks blurry at points. It looks out of focus, and I have to strain to read it, and it is not nice, especially after reading the Scarecrow narration box, which is a very similar font in the Infinite Frontier issue, where it was a very similar font, but it was a lot clearer and cleaner for me to read.
Okay, so I'm going to agree, but when I read it physically, it was fine. I had no problem with it. This must be a problem in digital versus...
So you think it's something about reading it on the screen?
I would...
Maybe.
Very possible. I would... What's funny is that when I was reading this on the tablet, I never had a problem. I would agree it looks kind of blurry and hard to read now that I'm looking at it, because I'm on the screen, right? Because I've got it on like my monitor next to the Skype window, right? And I would agree that it's a little bit... See, I didn't think this was going to be the complaint. I thought you were going to complain about how it transitions from Bruce's narration into Scarecrow's actual dialogue. And I was going to argue with you and say it was amazing. Well, not amazing, but like say that I thought it was a really good technique of showing how Scarecrow's in his head and knows what he's thinking. I thought that was a nice little touch, and I thought you were going to complain about that. This is kind of fair. I don't think it's a big deal, but
I think it's a big deal in the sense that it's actually not as big a deal in this issue as I thought it was going to be when I tweeted that, because this, I tweeted that before I got out of this opening section where it was, this font for 3 pages.
Oh, Conroe jumping the gun. What a surprise.
No, but here's the thing. I stand by the complaint as a concern going forward, because this is going to be a thing over the entirety of the arc, because they're not going to change this. And now I'm dreading getting to Scarecrow stuff in this arc, because I'm terrified of having to read this font over and over.
It was fine on my tablet, so I'm not that worried.
Even with the art on the tablet, the art's even blurry, almost like a dreamlike haze.
Do you know what I get from that? I mean, I will say it's having an effect that I think is doing its job well, even if it is a little harder to read. And the sound effect I'm hearing on his voice, it sounds kind of like... I hate to bring up Star Wars, but I'm getting not quite Darth Vader, but I'm getting like coming through a breather, kind of distorted.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, like a scuba.
Yeah. So
and this thing, I like the effect. I get what it's going for. I just think it's a chore to actually read, and that is not good for sure. Which was why I did think this was a reasonably fair complaint, as opposed to some of my other.
No. So I had no idea what you were gonna say, right? And then when you started talking about it, I was like, it can't be that bad. So I pull up a page on the tablet, and I see it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get what he's saying here.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I didn't have a big problem. Again, I think it was fine on the tablet. It's only on the monitor screen that at my distance that it's feeling a bit iffy.
Yeah. But see, I read this physically, and that's why I didn't think it was a problem. Because physically, you get like a depth to it that makes it like it stands out, but it wasn't blurry, Yeah,
this is maybe a slightly mileage may vary depending on how you're reading it, to be honest. But
for sure.
Okay, so minor lettering quibble. Okay. Let's knock that out. So this is set. This opening couple of pages is set further down the line because Scarecrow has Batman. Seemingly it's going by the narration boxes. It's Batman tied up. And the Scarecrow gas or whatever it is infecting him because it's like he's trying to like keep onto his own narration, but it's turning into Scarecrow's fonts and it's becoming his fears, these worries. And like I said, that kind of transitions to where Scarecrow then responds to something he's just said in the narration box, which I thought was a nice little trick to show that he's kind of in his head, he knows what he's thinking.
And it's the idea of how much of this is he actually saying out loud without realizing.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff, but it obviously cuts back to what it calls Old Gotham, which I actually kind of like that as well, Gotham.
I actually really like the transition as well, because it's it's Bruce talking to himself, remember how it started, it was on the road, a woman's voice in your head telling you, and then the next thing is just
it's Oracle.
The speech bubble.
Yes, it's Oracle speaking to him, which goes into Oracle filling a role and...
I'm glad the neon vibes from Future State are carrying over here.
There's some neon, yep.
I wasn't going to get this physically, and then I saw the cover, and I realized I like Scarecrow. And I was like, okay, if this arc doesn't go right, I'll make this a digital book.
Matt, here's something to point out, is that now that it's monthly, it may be more consistently Jiminez
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
hope
yeah.
so. And especially as March is busy over on Joker.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll be March.
But my thing is also, as I had said, 105 was gonna be my last physical Batman. Right. So
We all knew that
told
wasn't
my
gonna
shop.
last.
Right. So I told my shop, stop pulling Batman for me.
Did your shop
right?
hold it for you anyway?
They did. And so I gotta go. I thought he's like, well, no,
they
you
know
how you are.
They know that he lies.
We know how. That's not a lie.
I can't remember. There was
You're
one of
lying
the
to yourself.
shop owners on Twitter
Yes.
this week.
Uh-huh.
I don't know which one it was 'cause I follow a handful. But it was they tweeted saying, "Oh, when regulars come in and say they're not buying comics anymore," and then just with the gif from Hamilton of you'll be back.
You'll be like, it was Higgins.
Was it Higgins? Okay, I couldn't remember. I didn't know if it was Higgins or Big Bang Comics. I couldn't remember which one of them it was.
So yeah, I just looked at the cover, and that cover is amazing. And then as I'm reading it, I was like, oh, okay, well, Scarecrow, and then the Jiminez art. I feel like Jiminez here,
I think
this opening page of the Batmobile.
Oh, it's great.
I love the sound effect going on the road next to it, the broom of the engine.
There's
really
so
nice.
much atmosphere. There's so much world building in this issue for the various, again, the ensemble cast that is now going to inhabit Batman. And even though we already had it in the Infinite Frontier issue, it just cutting to Oracle at her desk, and she's like snacking on like what ruffles.
They're ruffles.
Ruffles, okay.
Like, yeah, they are. Or, I don't know if you guys, the chips there, if they're called something else.
Yeah, we don't have ruffles, but
not
here
to my
ruffles.
knowledge anyway.
No.
They're the Ridges type chips.
Oh, the McCoys. Got it.
Sure.
I don't know. They could be frisps.
But just I took to Twitter earlier the week when I was reading this and was like, I definitely want to talk about Babs transitioning to this role as Oracle, but we already talked about that in Infinite Frontier. So like,
it was there too. So
I will just say again, on lettering quibbles, still not a big fan of this Oracle font with the green on green. Not big on that.
It's very digital.
Yeah, I'm not fussed. But it sets up more stuff here. It sets up this was it the Insanity Collective? Basically, this new group, this villainous group that's emerging, who are like basically against all the insane people.
They're being run by someone calling himself Master Wise, which is spelled WYZE.
So I feel like this is obviously. I mean, I don't expect. I expect them to obviously be a feature in the book, but they feel like they're more going to be like a bunch of C-listers that happen to propel other plot elements forward rather than being the focus. But it's world building.
I do like the idea that almost this cult. They're not really a cult though, because they are like a collective. But they have cult vibes. Is spinning out of Joker War, right? Like Joker War changed Gotham so much that like this group popped up and now they're pulling heists together, and it is like it's
almost a backlash to like Joker inspired so many people to put on clown makeup and be his henchmen that this is like a backlash to anyone who would consider doing that. This is we're a sane kind of criminal kind of thing. And there's some good. One of my favorite things about Oracle as a character in that role is the banter with so there's a running gag here about how Batman's had to take a lot of the fancier stuff out of the car, but he's driving at like 95 miles per hour, but the auto like drive isn't really there, and he was like, okay, I'm going to go and like deal with the villains because some of them are up in like a sort of big giant drone with the stolen loot, so he's going to grapple up there. And he says, oh, there's no AI, there's just this kind of a remote control. And because she was just sort of saying, try not to crash then, since you're going so fast, he says it to her as he's on his way out the car, saying, hey, you have to drive now. So he's left Oracle in control of the Batmobile remotely, running at ridiculous speeds, which is just funny.
It's a giant RC car.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Also on this page, we've got the teaser of Miracle. Is it Mary or Molly?
Miracle Mary.
Yeah, who's like the second in command of this group.
Yeah, right. Who's the next, Tynion character along the lines of Punchline and Ghostmaker and Clown Hunter.
It's a good tease because she's in silhouette and then it's just a shot of her mouth and the walkie-talkie, and that's it.
Also, this introduces my favorite lettering technique in this issue, and I've been negative on the lettering so far, but I want to give some real praise here. Replacing the generic symbols that we use for swearing with the bats is a touch of inspired genius that I can't believe I've never seen done before.
Well, and they're consistent with what word they're saying, which I'm always a fan
of. The right amount of letters.
Yeah. Yeah, advantage is the effing Batman is obviously the line that's been said.
Yeah.
But that panel of Batman, if you go to the next page, like Batman coming out of the front of the Batmobile with a grapple is just beautiful. It's
it is
gorgeous stuff. And at the bottom, of course, Oracle with the reflections on her glasses. Again, there's just like the book is beautiful. But then, of course, Ghostmaker shows up, and Oracle complains that she put out the call for his help, 20 minutes ago, and he's late. Which actually, so they both kind of are doing this. Ghostmaker's been told not to kill anyone. There's a gorgeous full page spread of Batman, with two of the the various henchmen, grabbed. One of my favorite things, though, and I was actually enjoying the inclusion of Harley and what Tynion was doing with her. But one of my favorite funny pages of this whole issue is there's one page of Harley basically getting to this event after everything's already done, and she's out of breath. She's running across rooftops.
She's running across the roofs. Yeah. That's the bit that gets me.
And she's like, "Wait a minute!" And Matt, your mate's going, by the way. And Harley's just like, "Wait, how am I supposed to get here in time? Like, we don't all have. I mean, are you all millionaires? How do you have so many bikes and cars? Like, how am I meant to get to the?" So
more of the bat swearing.
Yeah, I love the idea that she's trying to be good and be an ally, but she just doesn't know how to get to the locations quick enough. It's really funny to me.
It's just there, her and her. What I'm assuming is a baseball bat on her back.
Yeah,
it may be. It doesn't look big enough to be a mallet.
Could be a mallet.
It could be, but I assume I'd see the mallet sticking out.
Yeah, it's just. Again, it's the ensemble. It's like Harley's been a regular main character in this Bat run. And I appreciate writers who do that and have a set. If you imagine that each run is a TV show, I want to be able to imagine that opening title sequence from the 90s where here's the 7 characters who are basically in every issue or close to. I want that feeling from the characters in a run, and I get that here.
That's fair.
And I think Harley's there, Oracle's there. Obviously this Ghostmaker character's there now. So. Yeah. And now we have the villainous characters coming in, the mayor and all that kind of stuff. So we go to this Simon Saint again, and he's basically pitching the magistrate to the mayor and why it's a good idea. And they're all very polite to each other in the scene. He has like a hologram of what a peacekeeper would look like.
Yep.
But
it says, only 1 to 5 peacekeepers per city.
We had more.
Interesting.
There was like 12 in Gotham, though, right?
Right, and so this is what I like from Tynion, adding a little bit of some social commentary here. In that, this is Simon Saint, who we find out he's from Gotham, and then left, and then he went to Silicon Valley. And if you pay attention to a lot of stuff that's going on, like, you get a lot of this kind of law and order type stuff coming out of there because of they're so far away.
They're running so far ahead of the law.
Right.
They can't legislate fast enough to keep up with what they're innovating.
Right. And then on top of it, so this guy takes that and is like, well, I can fix that problem if you turn the law over to us.
Yeah. And the idea that he promises, 1 to 5, specifically chosen peacekeepers. And the idea that that's how you sell it. You sell it at this manageable level, but we know for a fact it gets...
Right.
Yeah, and there's also the idea, he makes it clear that, the police would still be there to deal with regular crimes, like that's what they were built to do, but supervillains, like, you can't rely on capes for that, so the peacekeepers are there for the supervillains. And just one other detail here I like just before whatever Matt says, is that I like the idea that it kind of mirrors Bruce Wayne in a weird way, that he was in Gotham and he left, and then learned all his skills, so in this case it was Silicon Valley, but he came back to Gotham with all those skills, so this is how he sort of comes back as a Batman kind of thing.
Right. No, that's real good, but like, the plan doesn't sound terrible, right? Like Connor says, this is how they sell it.
Yeah.
And, you're like...
If we didn't already read Future State, and if we also didn't already know that he was working with Scarecrow, then we might actually think, this might not sound so bad.
Right. And even someone that already knew all this, going like, 1 to 5, they deal with like the Two-Face shenanigans, right? And you leave the police to actually do their job, what they're supposed to do. And it's like, not a bad sell.
Which, by the way, whoever decide to do the out of focus like city behind the silhouette of Scarecrow was a genius. Like, that is gorgeous.
Oh, those 2 panels are spectacular.
And obviously, even the sequencing of going from the window and then going across the street to like him watching from the rooftop, it's beautiful.
It's got a real sense of movement to it.
An atmosphere. I mean, it's got, if the city feels alive because of this out of focus element, I think.
Yeah, I do love that. This, neon, all the lights that I don't think we'd really seen in Gotham much before. Future State seems to have carried backwards. They're like, that's the look we're going to use for Gotham going forwards.
And the good news is that Detective is, obviously Mora, who was doing Dark Detective, which was even more neon-y than Future State next Batman was. So
yes,
maybe we have a slightly different look to it than this, but we're definitely getting neon in that book. So
right, and I think that was Belair colored that stuff, right? I don't know if she's coloring Detective, but I hope so.
Yeah, or at the very least set up a style that should be emulated.
Yeah, the house style for Gotham.
Yeah.
Not in terms of, we want everything to look like this, but just colors, tone, scheme, kind of.
Yeah. We're going cyberpunk with Gotham.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Versus the old Gothic rundown buildings. It's like the dystopian that's just under the surface, right? That Blade Runner kind of vibe. Yeah, which I like.
Yeah. So yeah, we're interested where Bruce is living now, and then the neighbor who just always seems to go out when the press is around, so he can complain about Bruce Wayne moving in.
Very American thing.
Yeah, and Ghostmaker's there. He wants to spar. Bruce he does get up and do it, but he's mostly thinking about his plans.
We're supposed to hate Ghostmaker, right?
Not anymore.
I still do. I don't think like his vibe.
No, I get that. I think we're supposed to feel this. He's supposed to have grown on us. Okay, maybe we're supposed to like him after all. He's got the same mindset as Bruce and some of our other heroes.
Right.
Realistically, he's not that far away from a Red Hood.
No, that's what I was going to say. He's got kind of a Jason relationship with him right now.
Yeah, and we all know how long it took me to get over Jason.
Yes, but I think that's... But we're still supposed to like Jason, right? We just don't, collectively.
I think the difference with this, though, is because it's Tynion's own character. I think there's an end point for this character in this run, whatever it may be, that it's going to build to.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying,
there's probably
his whole vibe here... Go ahead, Connor.
I think there is a narrative arc in plan, but also I think Tynion really wants to leave a lot of these characters around for the future. So I don't think it's going to be too close.
It may not be death, but I do think he'll have a... there's a purpose that he's heading with the character, for better or worse.
He's learned enough from Bruce now that he doesn't have to be so brutal, and he goes off back,
Basically, what we're saying is this is kind of going to be the same arc that Damian went through in the early Batman and Robin stuff in 52.
Very possibly.
Yeah, but he's an endearing little shit.
I mean, who knows though? Maybe he will ultimately reject the teachings of Bruce, and he'll be outright villainous again by the end. I mean, I don't know. But
he'll be a new outlaw.
But he very much could get killed though. Like, I mean, because he's a new character that Tynion created, he could kill him. I mean, even if he wants to leave a bunch of characters around, he still has Punchline. He still has this new character that he's just Ghost Clown Hunter is still there. Like, there's a bunch of characters that he can leave around and still kill this one.
Yeah, I mean, this new one is going to be his fourth in 25 issues, if that.
Yeah. And didn't he say he was going to introduce a villain soon?
Mm-hmm.
Was that not a thing? Like a new villain?
Quite possibly.
Maybe is that Simon Saint?
Maybe that's what it meant.
Maybe. Yeah.
But again, I like it because we go to the mayor's next. And he's basically saying, yeah, we're never doing this stupid magistrate thing. We don't need them. That's stupid.
That made me feel great.
Yeah. But because, of course, he has no intentions of doing it, the final page, the cliffhanger, is that, whether real or hallucinated or symbolic, there is a scarecrow, not the scarecrow, but there is a scarecrow behind him in his house.
I like to think it's a real one that Scarecrow has put there, just so that when he turns around and sees it, he'll get the message.
I mean, clearly, it's the whole point is to scare the shit out of him, so that he'll want to, put the magistrate program into practice.
When the idea that if he thinks he's personally in a lot of danger, he's more likely to go, okay, well, maybe the city is out of control.
Yeah,
right.
And again, even that, like, you could do some political commentary of Simon Saint working with one of the supervillains who he's actively saying, hey, you need us to protect you from said supervillain. There's stuff there, which is neat. Yeah, I loved this issue of Batman, honestly. I thought the world building was great. Even though I'm not in love with Ghostmaker as a character, he's such just a part of the whole thing. rather than like the focus, that it didn't even bother me at all. It was gorgeous. I like what they're doing with Scarecrow. I like what they're doing with Simon Saint. I obviously love what they're doing with Oracle. Supporting cast, I'm into it. I mean, we'll rate the book as a whole after the backup, but
Right.
that's just kind of where I'm wrapping up that.
Which I knew it was there, and so I got to the end of the story, and there were still pages. I was like, wait, what that? And then I was like, oh yeah, there's Robin backup.
Yeah.
Because I got so wrapped up in.
Yeah,
that's the 2-part Robin backup.
It's a prologue to, because this is Williamson doing a Damian story, and obviously he's doing the Damian book, which is starting in May. So this is just a tease, essentially, a prologue to that, which is basically Damian comes to see Talia, and takes out a bunch of her henchmen.
I actually really like the opening of this. So she's in Markovia, just for context.
I do love that that's continuing from what Bendis started in Leviathan, that Markovia is this rogue nation,
Yes.
Which is cool.
Hey,
I do like that.
World building continuity is a thing, which is nice.
It is, and I like it.
Well, what I was gonna say is I actually really like what the art does here, because they're at the top of some like tower, this hotel. There's like a helipad on the top, and there's a few henchmen standing around, but it actually does a little circle around them and kind of pulls them off, and then it zooms in essentially for the rest of the panels, but it tracks in for the insert with it through the art as a guide, which is really nice. I
do like Damian showing up in shadows and Talia saying you're just as theatrical as your father, like just complaining that you're trying to be like Batman. I also kind of like that Damian says, look, I've given up the bat. I'm back home to you, mother. And she's immediately like, oh, so you failed. You couldn't even become a bat.
Run home to your mom,
yes.
basically, is what she said.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch. It was mentioned Glenn Mellenkov's on the art, just because I'm on the artist page, or the credits page. And then there's a bunch of assassins show up. The League of Lazarus are here to kill Talia.
Well, they don't say they're here to kill them. They say they're here to test them.
Okay, true. And they've got like writing like in green all written all over their bodies. So we have League of Assassins, League of Shadows, and now League of Lazarus, just to keep track of all these various leagues.
Too many leagues.
Yes, but they get to fighting, and it ends on a cliffhanger where, because again, this game is only 10 pages rather than a full 20-page story. Where one of maybe the leader of this little squad have actually got Talia by the throat, which makes me think that Talia may actually be in on this as a way to test Damian.
Yeah.
Because she's throughout the whole fight, she's saying, "Hey, Damian, kill." But then she gets grabbed at the end, or knife at her throat, and she yells at him, "What are you waiting for? Kill him now, Damian." And he pauses, and then the final panel is just a splash of blood. And we don't know who the splash of blood's coming from. Is it Damian killing the guy? Is it Talia getting killed herself? Is it someone else's blood?
Yeah, I do suspect that you are roused in this as well. That it is probably the test is: have you really rejected the bat? Are you willing to kill? Are you willing to be an assassin and take up your mantle?
The panel of her, she had her arm behind her back. I have a bad feeling this dude's about to get split open.
Yes,
there's a very good chance that splash of blood is her slicing something from him.
Probably something very sensitive.
Look, Talia wouldn't be as petty as that. She'd hit the artery in the thigh.
I don't know, man.
I mean, all right, she'd hit that first and then go back.
So
she'd worry about her own safety first.
This is a weird Ivan Drago paraphrase, but if the dick is cut, the dick is cut.
Oh dear. Sure.
Do you know what I think I'll say about these backups, to having just gotten one of them this week? Because it's just this one, as far as the books this week go, is that, well, technically, in terms of it being oversized with a backup, I will say that giving this to like a bigger writer, because sometimes the backups can fall victim to being like, an up-and-comer, and they end up being a bit more rougher around the edges.
Fluff pieces.
Yeah. Because this has actually got a direction, because it's leading to an ongoing book, and because it is like someone who's been writing ongoing DC books for a long time, so it doesn't just feel like a throwaway thing. It didn't fill me with the same sense of like, oh, there's like 10 pages of fluff at the end.
It's a weird, like, frustrating element to me, in that, especially after having read it, I can make this statement very confidently. this is one 20-page issue cut into two to throw in backups. This could have been Robin issue 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd have to maybe slightly rechange this cliffhanger, but frankly, you could probably just have that as a page turn.
Yeah.
And it would still work.
I mean, that happens for a lot. I mean, a lot of ending cliffhangers could be page turn cliffhangers, really.
Right. Exactly. But this one here, I could really see it. Like, you could just turn to the next page and not even notice. And it frustrates me a little bit that they're, bumping up this and Detective this month with this backup, where this could have just been a Robin issue, right? You could have just started the Robin issue 0, done a tease issue for that. Like, there's no reason not to, except for the fact that they want to do the backups.
I mean,
well, I think
theoretically these are issue 1s, right? So they would have gotten the issue 1 bump, but they're not, because they're not renumbering.
I think
so now they get kind of that bump from throwing a backup in.
Yeah, I think the smart thing here, it's less about adding on the extra $1 so they can charge the extra $1. I mean, it's obviously partly that, but I would say it's more to do with, well, you've read this because you bought Batman, because tons of people buy Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you also read Detective, because lots of people still read Detective. That maybe you're more inclined to go try the Robin book out if you like the 2 backups.
There's that. I think there's the cynical part of me. I do agree with that. That it's maybe easier to sell people on. You've seen the first part of the story already. You don't need to buy Robin 0. I get that approach.
It's a sales pitch, basically.
It is. What I dislike, though, again, is there are sales figures that will back me up on this. There are probably thousands of people that read Batman that don't read Detective Comics. That will now feel forced into buying Detective Comics if they want to read the next part of this story, especially if they're interested in the Robin series.
There are, but Batman is maybe an unfair one because it does sell so much more than everything else. But
it does.
That said, Detective's still quite high up in the DC rankings, so it'd be worse if it was like part 1's in Batman, part 2 is in Suicide Squad.
That would be extra shitty. I agree that it could be a lot worse, but there are still thousands between them. We know that.
We do know that, but maybe even then that's part of it as well, is that, like, hey, Detective Comics is starting a new run, you've got an incentive to try out the new run as well for that, so it's kind of a double, like, it does make sense. There's an intelligence at work here.
There's a clear business sense to it that I understand from their perspective. That doesn't mean I necessarily like it as a consumer.
I mean, I'm willing to give them a chance on this and see how it plays. Like, I mean, as far as the backup goes, I think this flowed quite well. I didn't like it as much as the main story by any means, but
it's solid.
I like
the
this.
first half of an issue. Yeah.
Club's art's really good.
I think for all his bad takes on Twitter, he's still a very good artist.
Sure.
I do enjoy, and thankfully they're bad takes in just like, what are you saying, as opposed to
problematic.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and so no, I like the art. I was getting like kung fu movie vibes in it, just with the way that it was. Like, Talia does this standing kick that looks physically impossible, right? But it looks so good that you don't care.
But yeah. No, I mean, I enjoyed it well enough. I think this is a nice proof of concept of these backups working. So, yeah. But I'll just to rating the book as a whole, Matt. What are you giving it?
I'm gonna listen. Let's go with a straight 8.
Yeah, Connor.
Just for the sake of breaking it down a little bit, the backup on its own is like a 7, just to for where that drags things.
Mm-hmm.
The main story, I would have given a 7.5. I am knocking at least half a point off, if not slightly more, for my lettering complaints at the start. That did give me some problems. So overall, I think I'll give it a 7.
I'm giving it a 9. I really like this issue.
There you go.
Obviously, it's the main story mainly, but I think that the backup's a solid backup that still kept my attention, and I was like, oh, hey, I made this main story well enough, It was like a little bonus at the end, but the main story, I love the art, I love the mythology and the character ensemble building, all that
out of
stuff.
interest, I know you didn't do it on this particular issue, but going forward, do you plan on maybe rating main stories and then the backup separately? Like we did in Future State?
We did that in Future State because they're full sizes. It was a full 20-page, for the most part, backups.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of things like when we get to, for example, Justice League, where you've got a 20-page Justice League story and then a 10-page completely unrelated Justice League Dark story. I'm using that as an example because that's an ongoing thing.
I'm okay with rating them separately, but when we get to doing top 5s, I don't think they should count separately.
No, I agree. And they never did before. I still think we should do like an overall ranking there. and for the top fives, you still have to have the book as it is, or at least what you read of it. If you're not reading a backup consistently, then disregard, I suppose.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
I was for me this was probably a 9 and a 7, but I'd still just go with a 9 overall because that was the main feature. You know.
Yeah, boy.
All right, cool. There you go. It's Batman. The Swamp Thing issue 1. Ram V writing, Mike Perkins on art. This is, one of the most anticipated things this week, I think, for us, because Ram V's been kind of killing it. But it is worth mentioning, despite him doing Future State Swamp Thing, this, of course, is the start of a new character who is a new Swamp Thing. And I think at one point in the build-up to this, reading the solicits or whatever, I said it had some Immortal Hulk vibes, and now that I've actually read it, I'm like, yes, this is Immortal Hulk. This is DC's Immortal Hulk. Yeah. Give it to me.
I don't think I'm spoiling anything too much by saying, oh my god, I love this issue.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. And this is probably the best Mike Perkins art's ever been, and I've always liked his art.
I don't think there's a single point in this issue where the Mike Perkins face problem that we tend to have, even in the issues that we like of his. There's usually a handful of faces that look a bit weird, right, or overshadowed. Yeah. There's none of that in this issue. I don't. Is there a different inker? Maybe no. He inks it all himself.
Yeah. It weirdly reminded me of Sorrentino in places.
I think that's the colors.
Yeah, maybe, but I was like, the shading, even the faces. There was a vibe to it. So, yeah, no. It starts off with a monster story. That's how you hook me.
Yeah, as soon as I read this,
even
this book is made for us.
Yeah, even before you get to the monster, it starts off with a crime scene. It's just a couple of cops out in the desert investigating this body, and it's kind of weird.
Talking about bugs and maggots, and you're just like, ugh,
it feels like a crime book to start with, and then it's one of the cops is telling the new forensics guy who's new to the area. There's a legend, this pale hunter. I think is that what they call him? Pale Wanderer. And tells a story of this soldier who came back from whatever war it was at the time, 1862.
Which means he fled the World War.
The World War.
Civil War.
Civil War. Yeah. And basically, the town went to shit after it because at first, he worked as a hunter and he did random odd jobs. But then kind of fell away from society, and obviously it's kind of a silly legend because he'd be in his 150s or whatever by now or something. But it's this dark story where he eventually became part of the desert, and it's just a legend of this monster.
And again, the art in this, the coloring, it's all these muted colors and almost watercolor-esque, which is completely at odds with the really vibrant, popping colors of the rest of the issue. It really just sets it apart as this story.
Yeah, it's just, and this is the thing, so you're doing this and you're like, well, okay, it's clearly this is the villain, right? Whatever Swamp Thing we're getting, this is the villain we're talking about right now.
And Bidkar, who's doing the letters, does a trick that I've seen them do a couple of times in this story where it shifts to not having a box behind it. It just, all of a sudden, the box fades away and it just becomes the text on the image. And, you probably don't even realize it as you're reading it because the idea is you're getting sucked into this story as they're telling it, because this is as they're telling this story, and it just becomes the story. It's wonderful stuff.
Yeah, the older cop, the mustache guy, he's obviously more skeptical and says, cut out this, and he's saying these stories all come from the same thing, but it's this really interesting sentiment he shares before we cut to this new character who's ultimately going to be our new Swamp Thing. Talks about how we recognize something in the lakes and the deserts and the forests and all the sort of more natural parts of the world. There's this thing that we have where the realization that from the moment we're born, we're all trying so violently to be something else, to grow into something different. So the idea of the unknown and the natural is kind of scary to us. And we cut to this it's a really simple panel, but I love this panel of the plane flying through the sky with a lightning bolt, but there's this green colouring to the sky.
This storm that we see over the next few pages, it's this green glow. Instead of the usual dark blues and greys, it's really striking. That again, obviously, this is it's a Swamp Thing book, so we're like, okay, I see the link already.
Yeah.
The green is coming for him.
Right, but it's just so striking.
So we're introduced to Levi, this character who's on his way back from India, where he was visiting his father, his dying father at that. And he's on his way back to the US. And there's some hints of maybe protests and violence wherever wherever in India he specifically was, that is kind of building. But he's scared of flying, and he's not scared enough that he wouldn't get on a plane, but he's always nervous when he's on the plane, and the guy next to him's kind of trying to, like, hey, you all right, son? Like, you want some help?
Yeah, he's like, don't worry about it, it's just a storm. And
it turns out he has this nightmare. He is on a plane, he wakes up on the plane, but he has a nightmare. He runs to the bathroom because he thinks he's going to be sick, and he has this nightmare where he turns into, essentially, I mean, it's basically Swamp Thing, but it's more of like a violent, like, explosion of Swamp Thing.
Explodes out of him into this tree.
Yeah.
He becomes an actual tree, and it's spectacular.
And the plane sort of breaks apart because he just rips it in half because he becomes this tree in the middle of the plane. But then he's woken up after they've landed.
What I want to say as well is something I clocked when I was reading it the first time, but before it revealed that this was a dream segment, because it's not immediately clear, right?
No.
Especially as, hey, you could start your story with him turning into Swamp Thing for the first time and destroying a plane. It would be dark as shit, but you could do that if you wanted to. It's the page before when he's like, okay, I need to go to the bathroom. All the art is a little bit off on that page, and it was really bugging me when I first read it. Like the angles are slightly weird. They're like wave, like the door to the bathroom is like wavy. And I thought there was something wrong with the art for an issue. Like Perkins had made a mistake. And I was like, what is going on? It was bugging me. And then 2 pages later, and he's waking up. It's a nightmare. And all of a sudden, it makes sense. It's this visual clue that no, he's not in reality.
Yeah, honestly, even if it wasn't a nightmare, I'd have said it works because if he's nauseous, it's like the idea of like, this is what he's seeing. Like his vision is getting wavy.
His state of mind isn't right.
I think maybe just getting the idea that he feels unbalanced is sort of brought across in that as well. But we're introduced to Jennifer, who's this friend of his who he doesn't admit in the narration. They have been intimate on and off, so it's kind of like a friend/girlfriend that he kind of is, in his life.
It's complicated.
It's complicated, yes. But she picks him up from the airport and wants to hear about the trip and like talking to his father. As mentioned, there are people watching him. There are agents of some kind spying on him,
taking a picture.
Because we get like in the early part of the book, like we see him like there's violence assuming where he came from, right? Because he has the newspaper.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
Right. So he looks like he's been bothered by something, whatever happened. So I was like, are these guys, does that have to do with the other? Right? Like, is that why they're following him? Not just because it's something.
Oh, I don't know.
It's whatever.
I actually don't know. But
whatever
I did.
He was coming back from.
Honestly, it was this whole thing that was like him getting off the plane, getting picked up, and the dream sequence on the plane that felt really Immortal Hulk to me. And that's not to say that I think this is in any way taking from it. It's just that there is definitely, I think the second you turn Swamp Thing into not a constant thing, but more of a Jekyll and Hyde thing, it becomes DC's Hulk. Because as much as they can try to do with other characters, and as much as you can compare Swamp Thing to, say, Man-Thing, I think Swamp Thing, in terms of scale, in terms of importance to the mythology, is DC's Hulk.
Yeah, and just here, though, too, it's almost whereas Hulk's this primal rage from the mind of a, almost like an abuse survivor kind of deal in Immortal Hulk. Here, it's almost like it's Earth's rage coming out through one person.
Right, and I wouldn't be too surprised if by the end of this 10-issue first season, hoping there's a second already,
right.
So everyone go out and buy it at your stores. But what I'm saying is, I would not be surprised if by the end of this season, he is just Swamp Thing a bit more full-time, like, that's one out.
I think that's possible. Although the way it's playing it so far, like, I could totally see them sticking to this, like, turning into him and turning back. Maybe turning into him would be less horrifying for him by the end of the book, though. Because right now it is this delirious thing that seems to be triggered by a number of things, possibly how he's feeling, which again feels kind of Hulk-esque.
Events in the world maybe even more directly impactful, rather than anything that's personally him. For whatever reason, he's been chosen, but it's maybe not him triggering it, but more the Green being like, no, we're needed here now. Yeah,
because obviously we see these cops are investigating stuff, and they're tracking down, because the body that's there, they suspect that's, this is where people dump bodies because they know that the wilderness will kind of just take care of them. And they're attacking this guy, or I say attacking, they're hunting down, looking for this guy who's getting attacked by this monster, it's also a POV, but then we eventually see him, and he's got like the two hands, like he's ripped off two hands from someone.
Yeah.
And there's this big shadow. It's really good. And one of the cops is like chasing him with his shotgun. So this is sort of playing out as we're cutting back and forth. And again, but I love that it's playing with the intimacy. It's like him, like, okay, him and this Jennifer, Levi and Jennifer, we're getting to know what their connection is, that she does clearly deeply care for him. And maybe even the reason why they're not a full-time relationship is probably just because he is so standoffish and kind of like, broody and weird and emotional. But damn, that page where he like goes to sleep and there's like leaves around him and it's just his face in the darkness. Like, I was getting like serious, like almost Sandman era, like Vertigo Comics vibes from this.
I get that, and I think it's these pages as well where we see these flashes in the orange, which is such a stark contrast to the green. That I think Matt is onto something when he's saying it's something to do with those protests or what exactly was going on, because this looks like some memories are to do with his stuff, and he's seeing those things.
There's some hints here that his brother, who was involved in the protests, made some sort of pact with something, so it may actually be his brother's fault that he has become Swamp Thing.
Right.
At least that's.
And he's talking about like the burning of the forest, and like he can't remember exactly what happened, so he's getting flashes of it.
Because we kind of glossed over it, but because we see like a sort of another quick flash here of his father dying and forgiving him. But he says, "Levi, I forgive you," rather than "Levi, I am sorry," which is what we expect him to say, because what we hear from Levi is his father kind of disowned him for leaving and not being like a loyal son, which is what his brother, which is what he saw his brother as. He saw him as the loyal son. So it's sort of like doing this, but then of course he turns into Swamp Thing, and he's basically called to
just on the actual final bit of this page where he calls the Eldritch Green, which I think is very telling of the direction Ramby's wanting to have this approach here.
Yeah. But he's called to where this monster attack's happening in the desert. I never actually quite got it, because it says the Sonoran Desert. Do you know what that is, Matt? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, the Sonoran Desert's it runs like New Mexico, Arizona.
I assumed it was
along the border.
I assumed it was in that general area, but I didn't really know for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the guy speaking Spanish as he's running, and it's a big desert that runs along the border there.
So, but of course, when just as the sheriff or whoever it is about to get nabbed by this monster, this Swamp Thing appears, and I do think it's a bit more demonic looking. This Swamp Thing.
I love how it bursts out of the cactus.
Yeah, like even there's that 2-page layout where you see it's not as full as normal Swamp Thing. There's a lot of like gaps in between the veins, and
I think what it says to me is there wasn't enough green for it to transform from. Usually something grows from stuff, right? When he's traveling from place to place. Right now, the power's not there to form out of nothing. It has to transform the cactus that's there,
and
and there's not enough greenery there to use.
But these visuals of this Swamp Thing and it looking so horrifying is, again, another thing that made me think of Immortal Hulk, in the sense that Immortal Hulk took Hulk and made it a horror book. This feels like a horror book through and through. It feels horrifying. The end of the issue, though, is just as he's encountering this monster man, whatever's made him this way. He's pulled back. And he pops out of a tree in Central Park. It's worth mentioning Jennifer's apartment where he went was in New York, so that's sort of in the vicinity of where he originally was, but not obviously exactly. Which makes me wonder, like, did he actually, like, as Swamp Thing, go to the tree or go to Central Park and use the green to like travel?
Depends. Does she have any plants in her living room?
Oh, maybe, yeah. But
in fact, I think she does. I think that's where those leaves come from. If you go back to that page that you liked so much. If you look just above that page, the top panel, just above that bit, where he's lying on the sofa.
Oh, there's a
you can
plant.
see a little plant just above his head.
Yeah.
But no, he comes out of the tree in Central Park and he just sort of lies there in his pajamas, and it's very Hulk waking up, like after a morning of Hulk rampaging almost.
Right. But you've also kind of jumped over the most interesting part of the entire issue.
Hold on.
Just conversation.
One final point on this final panel, though. He's in a very fetal position as well. I think that's probably worth noting for thematic sake.
Almost as if he's been reborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are you saying, Connor?
Yeah, the conversation he has with the monster that I'm assuming is the Pale Wanderer, because it kind of seems to match up with the story.
I always assumed it was him. Yeah.
Yeah, never, outright says, but I think it's a reasonable assumption. But the idea that he talks about, he's actually a desert who dreamed of being a man, which I think is really interesting. The idea that he wasn't the man first. This is the personification of the desert. Same way he's the personification of the green.
Right, he took over, right, that farmer, and then became that story. And because they talk about like all that soldier wanted to do is go back to his home and be left alone, and he would chase people away, And
and they talk about it's especially when newcomers come to the desert. It's theirs.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting. Yeah, we've got various red, green, rot. Take your pick. The idea that there's more out there as well. Like this is this one desert personified into a being.
Yeah, like
the idea of it.
Yeah, what if it's the idea that it's not just like because obviously we talk about the red, the green, the rot. They're kind of universal things that apply to everything that is in that umbrella across the entire planet, arguably across the entire existence. What if the idea here is that like not so much that deserts in general have like a personification or a sentience of some kind of force that becomes something. It's that like you say, just this one desert wanted to be alive. So
yes, it would be like the idea of, I think, to use the where this book goes is Central Park could have its own being, essentially, that it took over as it's still Central Park. It's just Central Park that walks around.
I don't think it is Central Park though. That Swamp Thing is though, for the record.
No, I don't either. I was just using that as an example to compare it to. This is the one desert that you could have one for just Central Park's. Swamp Thing still though personified. Is green is everything.
Yeah, that said though, I do think it's. I don't think like something that small should like because the way Matt described it, it sounds like this desert's quite expansive and
And so I don't necessarily think it's the Sonoran. I think it's that area, right? And I'm thinking to Ram's Justice League Dark story, Connor, where they went to Africa and they dealt with the whole ideas. Right?
And that comes back in here, right?
Right, and it wasn't exactly the green and red and rot. It went a little bit deeper, and that's what I feel like here is it's tying, because we saw what he did with the green there. Yeah. By it, it inhabited the other place, and maybe because of that, this is what leads to the green as an idea persisting, and the idea of whatever the Pale Wanderer is. They come from the same place there.
It does perhaps make me wonder if this Swamp Thing is even actually the guardian of the green, like Swamp Thing typically is.
I would say yes and no. I think it's more accurately it is the green. In the same way that this Pale Wanderer is the desert, and it, this particular desert, and it took over this person. The dialogue is you're a newborn thing, a child. I think he's not just talking to Levi here. I think he's talking to the green, who has, basically has had to rebirth itself. Yeah.
Right.
And this idea that, he talks about, again, come back to ideas, like talk about in Justice League Dark and storytelling, they don't die. You can't kill an idea. You just subsume it and work it into your narrative. And one will work, one will win out.
Why is the green have to be reborn? Explain that part.
So in Justice League Dark, basically Swamp Thing, Alec Holland, had to sacrifice himself so Zatanna could basically get control of the Upside Down Man. Right?
Yeah, like the planet where the Upside Down Man came from, like that world, that dimension.
Mm-hmm.
The green through Swamp Thing had to create life there and gave itself up to be the green there, so that it would establish order and reality and rules and break the Upside Down Man's inconsistent logic.
Right, and in that it broke the control, right, and it went from being, disorder.
Well, I don't feel bad then. I didn't get that the green itself has been reborn because I didn't read Justice League Dark.
Right, but I don't think you need to. I can just think that this is a new form of Swamp Thing in the way that when they brought him back in Brightest Day, up to that point, Swamp Thing had been the memory of Alec Holland, right? In whatever made up the Swamp Thing. Whereas post Brightest Day, he was Alec Holland again, right? In the green in that way. Now here, the green's been no, I don't want to say reborn but it's been reconstituted to whatever happened in India, right? That chose Levi. This is the new version. So it's not necessarily maybe an avatar like we're used to with the parliaments.
From what you're saying, it doesn't sound to me like there's going to be a parliament. It sounds like that's gone.
No.
And this is a complete fresh start.
Foreseeable future, yeah.
Right, and that's where Connor was getting at, where he is the green, as if the Pale Wanderer is desolation, because that's almost what it is. It's almost not necessarily the desert, but the idea of
which is why I think
nothing.
Perhaps the rules here are going to be a little bit different. If he's not actually an avatar like Swamp Thing usually is, that's maybe why he will be transitioning back and forth, and it's not a permanent thing.
Right.
Maybe why the rules are just completely different.
Possibly, and I think why I think though by the end it might be Swamp Thing all the time is in the same way that the Pale Wanderer has been he's not that man anymore. He is the desert in that body. I wonder if by the end of this there's a chance that this will be the green in the body of Levi, as opposed to before where it was
it depends.
It was Alec Holland in the body of the Swamp Thing.
It depends what direction they want to go in, because I mean the whole point of the story could be that's the warning, the story.
It might be, yeah. It might be that maybe he needs to find balance by the end.
Yeah, maybe he has to. The point is for him to learn to not let it take over completely. But
right.
That's just a case of whatever the story wants to go to.
And that goes in with the original, with Swamp Thing being the avatar and wanting to find balance for the green, right? Whereas we were introduced to that concept with the green and the red and the rot, that they all try to have balance, but when one tries to oversee the other, that's when things get wonky. Right, when the red ends up having a champion that goes too far, it throws that balance completely off. So here this almost gets rid of that whole parliament idea. The
Pale Wanderer is an interesting one because obviously he's been around for a long time, but does the balance of the red, the green, and the rot, like, does that see something like him existing as unnatural and as an anomaly that should be rectified? Or
I would say no. I think he is like a lesser being essentially to them.
Yeah.
Essentially, if to put this on par, if the red, green, and rot are humanity, then things like this, the Pale Wanderer, they're like dogs. They're there. They're around, but they're not running the planet in the same way.
I think what he's trying to say.
Clearly, you don't have pets.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say, Matt, is that the Pale Wanderer is a mid-carder.
Yeah. Could be, but
you're doing wrestling
sometimes
shit again.
Yeah, but sometimes the mid-carder can end up gaining such a following.
Oh yeah.
That you have no choice but to put them, and maybe that's what this waking up, whatever the green felt the pull there, right? Maybe that's what the Pale Wanderer wanted. So who knows? I do know this, but I just want to touch on before we move on this idea of Eldritch. Like I know it's tied to Lovecraft. Right?
Yeah.
But what does that exactly mean? Is it like a cosmic terror kind of deal?
I think it's the unknown, more specifically.
The unknown?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's what this is, the unknown green, then it's a new form.
Unknown and to some extent incomprehensible by our puny human minds.
Yes.
As this whole last 20 minutes has been, right? Us trying to piece together exactly what it is.
I thought Matt was going to say, as that's the last 20 minutes has been, me trying to listen to you two talk about it.
No.
I think
I take it part as well.
Yet another issue showcasing why Ramby is the best new talent DC has had in years.
For real.
Yeah.
Now, after this, when we're done, Connor, I need to talk to you about his other books, just to find out exactly if they're my kind of thing.
These Savage Shores is 100% your kind of thing.
I think
that's what that was my next question.
I mean, it's Ramby and Tom King, right? Although they both do very different things, but I think you look at Mr. Miracle, you look at.
I think Ramby is more exciting me on an ongoing book.
Sure. They have different strengths, that's for sure. But I mean,
and I think maybe it's safe to say maybe it's because I haven't seen a Ramby book as of yet go long enough to ruin itself, like Tom King's Batman did, for example. Whereas Tom King in a confined setting, I can absolutely love.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There is a creator-owned vibe to the stuff that we liked out of those two guys too. Like we tend to prefer when it's Tom King doing sure, Mr. Miracle's not his character, but he's definitely doing his take on the character.
It's interesting because I think this Swamp Thing falls in the same lines as of any of those Tom King prestige series where I can see this in a bookstore for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas his Catwoman run or his Justice League Dark, they feel more traditional DC books, even though like Catwoman is more of a crime book, and you could say there's an indie influence from that. It still feels like it's an ongoing DC book as well, where it doesn't feel like this is designed for one amazing trade that will sell for years. Whereas this definitely does. It's a bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right, Mal, what are you rating that?
This is 9.5.
Connor?
I'm going to give it the 10.
Yeah. Figured you would.
I'm going to go with the 9.5 as well. It's pretty exceptional. Nigh on perfect. But super atmospheric, very exciting. It's an introduction of a new character as well. And this is the thing, if you introduce a new character, you do it in a book as good as this, and no one is going to critique that it's a new character. No one. We're all just going to be excited by a new character, and it's good. It's fine. Great news. All right. Man-Bat issue 2. Dave Wielgosz and Sumit Kumar on the art. We were pretty positive on issue 1 of this book. With the only real disappointment being that they were kind of shorting the Suicide Squad in, perhaps by the end. So, how did we feel about issue 2?
I still like it. It's less of a monster book. This one's more actiony, right?
Yeah, I'd say good, but not as good.
I'd say not as good too.
Also, Kumar's art felt to take a step back.
Yeah,
it's still good.
Can I just mention though the regular cover is like beautiful. It's like a horror movie cover.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I will say, so my favorite stuff in this book continues to be like, so the opening sequence is a flashback to Kirk and his wife when they're sort of bonding and talking about trying to help his sister. It's just a really sweet flashback, kind of setting up how they sort of fell for each other in the first place. And it's kind of a shame, even though the action's pretty fun once Man-Bat's actually fighting the Suicide Squad, there was an element of me that when the scope comes into panel and like the Suicide Squad basically invade the book, I'm like,
you remember, I'm like, this.
Like, especially since where it ends as well, which is that the next issue is going to be, I mean, maybe it'll be great because it will be all about his character, but it's going to be Harley giving him a therapy session as the next issue.
Which I do like though, just because this is the version of Harley I like versus the Suicide Squad version that this is coming back to.
There was a point early on with Harley that I was worried for just for a second until I realized what it was doing. Like when I actually stopped and thought about it, because it sounded really over the top, like Harley doing really Harley things, and then I realized, oh no, she's putting that on purpose because she's clearly not with it and is just trying to sound like Harley.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden I really like that panel.
I had a weird moment because I thought the art in those two panels with her, where she's really like serious looking for a panel, and then she's like really over the top Harley for a panel. I wasn't super in love with it. I think what hurts us a little bit is now it comes out in the same week as the Swamp Thing, which is another Jekyll and Hyde style book. Is that there's an unfair comparison element just by existing together with it.
I have plenty of love in my heart for different monsters, so
yeah, this is again, Pete. Those two panels with Harley that you're talking about there. That second one, because this is why when I realized that's her being aware that it is over the top. She's putting that on.
Oh, I get it. I still don't think it looks good though. In fact, I mean,
the faces are just a little bit off.
Well, it's not just faces. I like the action. I think Man-Bat typically looks very good, but there's some panels of some members of the Suicide Squad. There's a panel just a page or two later of Deadshot jumping off of a tree. And
looks a bit bulky.
It's not even just bulky. His arms and legs look just the wrong size. Like, I mean, I know it's maybe from an angle and the way he's like sort of like bent, but his legs look tiny and his arms look huge. And I feel like, wait a minute, if we're looking down below up at him, shouldn't his legs look bigger than his arms? Because they're closer.
Yeah.
Right? It looks like a little alien or something. It's really weird. And there's a few panels in the book that have like art like that where the body proportions are just really weird. But speaking of comparisons, Scarecrow shows up later in this issue.
Yeah.
And it's kind of generic Scarecrow, and compared to what Batman's doing with like its new version of Scarecrow. It feels a little bit it's a little bit watered down. It does specify in this book, though, just for the sake of Deadshot being alive, that this is set before Justice League Dark.
This is before, like, this is set technically years ago in continuity, because this is before any of the Justice League Dark stuff. It's before, I think it's even before the first Metal.
Maybe, yeah.
So like, I'm not going to hold the Scarecrow design against them.
No. But it's just a comparison thing where like we get that exciting new horrific take, and then you go to this book and it's like, it's just kind of.
I actually loved what he did with Scarecrow though, where he's spraying the goons with the gas, and they're seeing all the army of man-bats basically.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great moment, and then the shadow of Scarecrow kind of coming over them. I loved that moment.
Yeah, the issue flows quite a bit because it's mostly action with the Suicide Squad fighting them.
Mm-hmm. I read very quick, but no, you got Croc and Man-Bat fight. I like that, and I like Deadshot. You got to bring him in alive, preferably.
Yeah, I liked how it built to Croc.
Doesn't play to his strengths.
Yeah, I liked how it built to Croc because it was like he takes on all these very fairly normal humans. It's like Deadshot, Boomerang, people with tricks and guns and whatever. And then Croc comes in, it's like, oh shit, he may actually beat me.
Right.
So I mean, I do like there is some good art in this. As much as I was complaining about some of the body stuff, like Man-Bat like flying out of the water when he breaks free, and especially I love the streaks of blood from his wings where Croc's been biting or stabbing him. Boomerangs have been there.
Stabbed in him.
Right.
So the motion and stuff with Man-Bat is great. Like, in fact, the next page when he lands on Boomerang and he's like staring down at him, that stuff looks glorious.
Yeah. Honestly, that Deadshot, because I did feel that with that Deadshot as well. I didn't have it quite pegged to the arms and legs, but it was his torso that looked off to me.
It's huge. He's built like Cable.
Yeah. Like that's the one panel in this whole issue where I'm like, oh, I do not like that.
He's got a wide torso and then really tiny little legs. It's weird. It's like he's I'm trying to. It's like an alien from like a movie that I'm trying to compare him to, and I can't quite think of what it is. But some little silly thing from, or maybe from a cartoon or something. I don't know. So I mean, I still like. I like the flashback. I like some of the action. I do kind of wish the Suicide Squad didn't invade the book though. So we'll see how issue 3 goes with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with issue 3 because if it is going to be him talking about his feelings to Dr. Harleen, I'm good with that because we're going to get more about his sister. I feel.
Yeah,
it might actually be really interesting. It's interesting that's going to be the midpoint of the series. It's only 5 issues.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, as much as it's still Harley stuff, at least this might just be like an exploration of his backstory. Which, given that I like that flashback at the start, is maybe a really good sign ultimately. But
yeah.
But definitely, like I really liked issue 1, and this was okay. This was fine, but I didn't love it.
And I'm still fine with it. Like I'm not. It didn't chase me off.
Oh sure, yeah.
So I'm still into all of this. But yeah, I mean, after this is why I saved Swamp Thing for last, right? Just because I think that if I would have read Swamp Thing then read this, it would have been like Whiplash. So,
All right. What are you rating it, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7. The art did take a step back on the stories, all right, but that's still good.
Connor?
I agree with the 7 actually, which is less than what I gave before, but it's still good.
Yeah, I would have got a little bit. I'm going to go with a 6. Like I didn't have a bad time reading it by any means, but there was just enough little problems in the art that I had. Suicide Squad kind of invading the book that I was otherwise really enjoying. Just annoyed me a bit, but I'm still in for issue 3 to see what it does now. Especially since he's taken out the Suicide Squad now, so it's like it's kind of done. So
they're not going to be in the back half of the book for sure.
No,
or at least if they are, they're going to have to revamp what they're doing with them.
Yeah, there may be a page of them like waking up from being like they're having their asses kicked next issue, but I don't suspect much more than that. So there you go. Crime Syndicate issue 1, another mini series here. This is Andy Schmidt writing with Kieran, McKeown and Bryan Hitch on art. But there's actually a backup. It's not actually an oversized book, but there is like a sort of designated backup section. It's a separate story.
Yeah, thankfully.
I chose not to read this because it looked dull.
You're not wrong, Connor.
Yeah, that's not making me regret that.
Why? I don't know why today's catchphrase became Connor's a prick, but honestly, it's coming up again. Just,
I'm a prick for not reading a book that didn't look very good.
Yes, try issue 1.
So
You coward.
Right. You guys can fight later. I got stuff to do today. I want to get this done. So I had high hopes on this book, so it's mostly on me. But when I started it, Infinite Frontier is meant to be like, hey, we're going forward. And this felt like a big step back. And it's just the characterizations of these crime syndicate. Like, I understand they want it to be different because now Earth 3 is different. But different doesn't, I don't know. I'd say a different form of, I can't even get my words together right. It was bad. Like, I did not enjoy reading this.
I love how he's searching for words and
it just ends up with this.
Because I didn't want to outright say that, but like,
can I ask a question? Is Ultraman as a kid being responsible for killing JFK? Is that a new thing, or is that something
that's completely new? Because traditionally Ultraman isn't an alien; he's a human that ended up getting powers via kryptonite, and then he almost becomes an addict because he needs that kryptonite to feel special.
Yes.
Right. And
well, they do reference he's an addict later on in the issue, so presumably he's still munching on kryptonite.
Right, and he might not be Kryptonian, but he's being played as Kryptonian here. I was getting vibes of Brightburn.
Actually,
here.
I didn't even notice this when I was reading it, but on the page where he's floating in the air as a kid, he's on Elm Street.
Yeah.
It says Elm Street on the street side.
Yeah.
They're not subtle then, is what you're saying.
No, not at all. And so, like, and I get this is, versions of the Justice League that are on an Earth where morality is flipped, but I didn't get that. I don't get that morality's flipped.
Yeah, it's about
like I have in different versions of Earth 3.
Because obviously we skip ahead to when they're adults, and Ultraman doesn't like the fake news that's been printed in the Daily Planet about him. Cat Grant took a stand and said some nasty things about him.
I do like that Kat is the publisher because, she does have a different relationship with Superman traditionally. So for her to be the one running those stories, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wasn't super into this either. There is the odd little thing that I kind of like in the art where, for example, they tease like someone speaking to the president, and it's these two close-up panels of the mouths, and it's like whoever the villainous woman is like saying, something, and then she's like makes like moving his mouth to match it, and it just you get a sense of what it's doing, and it turns out to be Superwoman, with President Oliver Queen,
but it's Donna Troy Superwoman.
Yes, very different,
which is different. Which again, different doesn't always mean bad. That's what I was trying to get around to. But here, nothing lands for me.
Jon Stewart is the power ring. Now.
Which I did. That was the one high point here is how different they've made this power ring from different. And not just because it's John, just his whole idea of order, right? And that's what he's going to try to bring to this Earth. Is completely different than the power ring that we've got, that he's like this scared individual that lets the ring make the decisions for him. That's completely different from this, which that was a good change, I thought.
Yeah.
Here. And, made the character interesting.
There's a Starro invasion towards the end, which they all kind of react to after they're introduced.
Which I do like. No one's allowed to bully the city but me. I did like that out of Ultraman, because it's very Ultraman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was very disappointed. And then we got to the backup and just this whole story.
You're skipping over Owlman's introduction just quickly, where it's Thomas Wayne who's Owlman, and
typical.
And basically Alfred like shoots someone in the back of a head who's taking some Instagram videos of Owlman. It's like always clean up after your messes, Master Thomas. That's basically the thing. The backup is basically just like a telling of young Ultraman.
So, take this for what you will. I took this version of If These Are the Kents. This is the Snyderverse Kents. All right, you end up with Ultraman.
Basically, yeah, the opinionated people who describe someone as a bunch of freeloaders, right?
Right.
And so this is what this young Clark is taught, and because he has that viewpoint, eventually when the Kents reveal that he's an alien and they show him the ship, he says, "You're liars. You've been making me do chores. You're freeloaders too." And now he's just evil because he sees everyone on Earth as a bunch of freeloaders.
Right. And I'm just like, all right, well, I don't.
Sure. For the amount that you called me a prick, I feel like I made the right decision.
He did.
Yeah.
You know,
you're supposed to suffer too.
Right, but Pete doesn't like springing surprises unless it's him doing it. You know, well, like times where I was led to believe that we were all reading a book, and I get there and I'm the only one that read it.
Nah,
you know?
For the record, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed.
But yeah, the one other thing I did think was funny here is they would editor note books that aren't.
Oh
real.
yeah, I actually did think this was funny.
I thought that was funny.
There's 2 or 3 editors notes where it'll say, like John Stewart will mention something about the Green Lantern Corps, like coming up in Green Lantern Corps, blah blah blah. On shelves never.
Right.
And it was just
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, but like just these characterizations, they just go a little bit too cartoony and not a good way.
Yeah,
you know, like again, the whole freeloaders thing, and you're just like, do something more. Like you already kind of set them up. Like again, I was getting vibes of the Kents from Man of Steel, where they're like, this country doesn't owe you anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. You be you, and you be proud of it. And then it all loads to him like they're like, oh, well, I got to do chores, so
I almost would have preferred if this book, like the New Earth 3 Ultraman, is just Man of Steel Kent's.
That would have been great.
But it becomes
if you
Ultraman.
told me that's what it was, I'd have gone and bought it right now.
Yeah, right. And it almost gets there, and then you get to that, and you're just like, well, this is not satisfying. Like him, like he's just a brat. That doesn't make Ultraman work for me.
Nah.
He's just a bratty version of Superman.
It does actually sound like you mentioned Brightburn. It sounds very along those lines.
But
in some ways,
least Brightburn had the guts to like actually make the kid a bad seed. Whereas here, he's just mad he had to do chores.
Yeah,
that's the reveal.
Yeah, Brightburn was obviously trying to be more of a horror movie where it was dealing with the fear of the people. Because, you know, the parents in Brightburn weren't evil. The parents were scared of him and, like, were terrified when they started to realize what he was capable of. But they weren't awful to him. They didn't make him be evil. You know?
No. But yeah, so, and here, that's where I got the vibe. That's what they were going for when he assassinates JFK.
I mean, between mentioning fake news, between the parents calling anyone who gets a handout a freeloader, I mean, there's a bit of a political message in here about, you know, like, making, like, really entitled, like, you know, little shits. I don't know.
Which I could buy the vibe if that was the morality on this Earth 3, right? But I don't get that. I get that Earth 3 is actually not that much different than typical Earth, but just the Justice League is bad now. And that to me, that Earth 3 doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have that flip morality where, you know, Bendis even played with it in his, you know, Young Justice and Superman run. You know, that's part of John's origin, where that Ultraman imprisoned him in a volcano, you know, because he was almost jealous of him.
Yeah. Oh, that was definitely more interesting for sure. No.
Yeah. And so this one is just not interesting. So.
Yeah. I've been waiting Matt to finish for like 3 minutes so I could ask him what he's rating and move on.
This is a 4.
I mean, I'll go 5 just because I think it's told well enough and flows well enough that I can't really be too harsh on the actual, you know, the art or the comic booking side of it. And there's a couple of jokes here or there that were amusing, but I didn't really like it that much either, and I don't want to read the next one, so. Yeah.
That's where I'm at too. Most of that is my own expectations, because I came into this when it was announced, like, super stoked. And it just let me down real hard.
I did not realize you were ever stoked for this, because this was announced while my computer was broken, I believe.
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw this, I was like, I don't think I'm going to bother with that the whole time. I assumed that you guys also had the same kind of muted trepidation about it. I didn't realize there was excitement about this one.
No, for me it was because the first Morrison thing I think I ever read was his Earth 2 graphic novel. Like, I remember buying that in middle school. I had my mom get it for me at the bookstore, and I read that, and that really set the tone, like, oh, cool, like, evil versions can be cool.
I don't think
they're not just the Soki thing.
I don't think I'd be describing myself as excited. Matt was excited. I was neutral curiosity, I suppose I'd call myself.
Yeah, I would never. When this was announced, people was like, "Oh, cool, we'll check out the first issue."
Yeah, that was my.
Me, I was like, "Oh yeah, this could be like fun," and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Oh, we reading it. Oh, we already did that. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the new books.
Thanks for paying attention.
So I was paying. It was a brain fart moment. Give me peace. Give me peace.
Almost last book.
Almost last book. Yes, we got Patreon books. Every month at patreon.com/mailfuzztv, our higher tiered patrons can make.
Wait, Pete, I thought you were gonna read Suicide Squad.
Very good.
So sorry, what's this?
Yeah.
Pete didn't read issue 1?
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
Had I read it?
Robbie Thompson Suicide. Well, okay, if you'd read it, Matt, it'd have been hilarious because you last week very clearly knew that none of us were going to read it. That was the joke. You knew we weren't going to read that.
I just want to say, after all the shit you just gave me for not reading an issue 1, because we try issue 1s here, why are you not reading this issue 1?
Because it was clear we were going to try issue 1 of that book. We said we were going to.
I never said I was going to.
I'll just assume Connor's not going to read anything now. I'll just assume Connor's not reading anything.
I wasn't here when this was announced to voice my displeasure.
Hold on.
Yes, we were.
I read this in between hockey periods.
But you actually read Suicide Squad?
You read Suicide Squad?
I did. Because I thought Pete was actually serious.
I wasn't serious.
Matt.
Well, yeah. So
Matt, I couldn't have been more clear that I was never going to touch that book last week.
What is wrong with you, Matt?
Quick. Oh, I have nothing else. I was watching hockey. Ash, so we got our second vaccine, and it hit her hard. So, like, I was up here in the office watching hockey so I could let her sleep. And I was like, well, I have nothing to read on the intermission right now. Why not?
You could have found anything else to read.
No, it's okay. It actually wasn't half bad compared to something like Bryan Syndicate. So just a quick review.
What's going on? Are we in Bizarro World?
Yeah, we are. After the amazingness that was Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, just going back to the trope of government, blowing up villains, I'm not digging it. But so Amanda Waller gets Peacekeeper to lead this. She kind of flips on Rick Flag, and they send him into I want to say Arkham to pick up a Talon, who's William Cobb, who, if you guys remember from way back in the Nightwing run, he's Dick Grayson's like great-great-grandpa.
He's the main Talon that we were introduced to at the start of that story.
Yeah, he is the original Grayson of Gotham.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so they break him out and he kills Bolt, who is basically just being used as a teleporter for the Suicide Squad. And it ends where Waller goes to break someone else out, and it's Connor Kent, which I am offended by because he doesn't belong in this book. Period. That said, it wasn't terrible, but I feel like that's Robbie Thompson in a nutshell. Like, it's not bad writing. It's just not my thing.
It's serviceable.
Yeah, the art's good. I do like the idea of William Cobb's brain from being a Talon is so broken, he only says "who" like an owl. Like, that was a fun.
That's so terrible. Yeah,
but it's terrible in a fun way, He's got like marks all over him and stuff, and he violently kills Bolt, which was cool. But like Peacemaker kind of sucks as a character. Like, unless it's John Cena, I really don't care.
I can't believe you read this.
Do you know the first part of this is that David, who cuts up the podcast for the comic book channel, he asked me the other day, is anyone reading Suicide Squad? I said, oh, definitely not. So he's not made a thumbnail for Suicide Squad, so he's going to be very upset that he has to do one now.
I'm sorry. I wanted to drop this on Pete, because again, I really believed he was going to read it, because we try issue 1s, and because I'd already read my comics for the week, why not? So, yeah.
We typically do try issue 1s, but I felt that Suicide Squad... I mean, look, Matt, I thought I made it very clear in my jokey tone last week. Every time I said we're definitely going to read Suicide Squad, that it was very much understood.
He basically went, wink,
yeah.
As he said.
The only reason why I don't do that is because I can't wink. I physically can't wink. Otherwise, I would have winked.
Well, you should learn to wink. At least wink like Rocket does. So there we go. So I'm going to give Suicide Squad a 5. Bare minimum. Boom. Don't have to read the second
this book. Anything is just amusing.
That might be the best review we've ever done on this show, is Matt's review of Suicide Squad issue 1.
Curveball. Bink. Right there. Drop it. 12 to 6 curveball.
All right.
Gotcha.
All right. So every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, our patrons at the higher tiers get to make myself or Connor read a book. Connor is about to tell you about a new book, Nocterra issue 1.
Yeah, this is from Scott Snyder and Tony Daniel. I believe this was the one they kickstarted a few months back now, and it's finally here. Well, the first issue is anyway. The premise of this book is the world has gone dark. The sun, they know it's still there, but for whatever reason, it's not breaking through. You can't see it. It's just darkness at all times. And what we learn is that if you don't keep yourself lit up, like physically illuminated by light, you will be infected by the darkness, and you will turn into a creature known as, I think they call them shades. But this doesn't affect just humans. This is all life, all animals, all plants. If you're not illuminated for longer than roughly 10 hours, although it's flexible, then that life form will change into a shade. It's like an infection, which is pretty interesting with what they're playing with this already in the first issue. Our main character is Val, called sign Sundog, and there's a little bit of a flashback at the start. Just it basically starts out, everyone has the question, where were you the morning that the big PM hit? Because that's what they call it, the big PM, because it's the big PM, nighttime, afternoon, so yeah. And just like the way it's treated here, it's like asking someone, where were you when you heard about 9/11? Everyone everyone goes, okay, I remember where I was. And like all the stories,
sun going out is pretty good to remember.
No, it is. And she kind of talks about how all the stories are kind of the same. Just I was doing the dishes, I was watching TV, and it just happened. And it's, again, harkening back to that stuff. She talks about how her story is different because she's adopted. She has a parent and an adopted brother. But when she was young, she was actually basically blind. She had like some pretty severe cataracts until she was like 4 or 5. And it was like where she could just about see things if she moved her head and looked at something, she'd get like a flash of something before it went dark. And then they had this operation when she was like 5 and saw her family for the first time, and then lived for maybe 10 years or so. I think she's about 13 to 15. It looks like when this event happens, and then everything is returned to darkness, and everyone else has this panic, but for her, there's this sense of going back to her childhood, and this is what she knew for years of her earliest memories. And this is where it actually cuts ahead. We're 13 years into the event, 13 p.m. as the calendar is now marked by this. And she is a driver, seemingly for like refugees and such, where there's a big like truck where she drives people to an outpost, and it's very Alan Wake, in the sense that when the shades attack, you can take them out with like bursts of light, not just like not just regular. It has to be like particularly bright, like flares, things like that, and that seems to destroy them, or at the very least damage them enough that you can get rid of them. But they have this fantastic action sequence where she's in like this suit, driving the truck, and the refugees are in the back. They think something's wrong, even though she's telling them to stay calm. It's fine. One of them panics and hits the emergency release for the door, and the shades start coming in, and they're like little, like almost like, it's hard to describe because again, something they talk about is all the creatures that became shades kind of interbred with each other because like the shades physically changed their biology, so they could. So you have like bats. This looks like a bat with like suckerfish things, like starfish suckerfish things to stick onto stuff.
Sick.
Yeah, but with like 4 legs of it, like with the bat, like the wing. It's a unique thing basically, and there's all a lot of really range for a lot of creative freedom for Tony Daniel to really come up with some great designs as the book goes on. I'm sure because he's set up this rules of kind of absolute freedom, essentially. They can kind of do what they want. And basically, when the doors open, she has to leave the truck on auto drive and get out and start fighting them. She's like flare bullets and stuff like that, sizzlers and stuff. Just little like grenades that let off light, but like a chemical light, as well, like to really damage them. And it's this great action sequence that goes on, and she has to allow the flare to come and get rescued. And the city where they're going, this like outpost 41. The reason it survived is because the before everything went dark, their town, its history, they were light bulb factories. That's what they made there, and they happened to be having a celebration of their town history. So there was light bulbs everywhere. So they were actually all safe. So that's where they're going. They've got these huge big spotlights, floodlights, everything. Just this protection on this wall. It's really gorgeous stuff from Daniel. The sense of scope on this. It's so impressive with all these creatures in the bright light. But we're inside the scene now and get a little bit of her history again. She's still got a brother, but we learn that he's not in a good spot. He's infected. Because what we learn is the infection does take humans as well, and it takes them when it hits through the gums first. And it goes from the gums, it then spreads. But if you catch it while it's in the gums, you can contain it. You can have dialysis that'll not cure it, but will just keep it there. There are some particularly strong sun lamps they believe that can blast out of you basically. And this is where we learn her motivation. What she's saving up for is there's a sun lamp in this nearby town that she wants to try and get for her brother. But what we learn is there's been an attack on this town by some human shades, because the human shades are different. They're not like all the other ones because they don't intermingle and interbreed with other creatures. They are still human in a very scary way. They'd say they can take out an entire outpost. Now, an outpost is like an entire town in 2 minutes, but they have their own society, their own language even. They're clearly intelligent on some level. And they are the most terrifying thing in this world. And a couple of humans shades took out the town where she had this lamp, and it's not great. So she takes up this offer from a guy who wants to hire her to take her to a safe this guy who, and what is, I think it is granddaughter, to take them to this safe haven where he claims to have been there recently, and recently enough that he has a sunburn from this place, which again, these people have not seen the sun in 13 years. So it seems so unbelievable. But in desperation, after learning of this, she decides to take it on and get the money and see if and to see if this place is real and that this could save her brother. And then the final little cliffhanger is after she goes, there's a guy comes into the town looking for her, wants information on what her tags are, what she's driving, where she's going, and he's got again this really unique design where he's all entirely black, and I mean not like a black suit. He's coated in complete blackness. Think like Obsidian or the Shade sort of stuff. And it's nasty. It's this a matrix of carbon nanotubes that he's bonded to. But if you don't have a tolerance to it, it burns you. He's just like hot tar, and he just puts his hand on some guy's face and starts melting through his eyes and his face, and it's horrific. And he says the reason he's after her isn't because of her at all, but the guy that she's transporting, because he's the guy who killed the son, and we want revenge. And this is it's such a fantastic first issue. All of the stuff, it's got this extra hook at the end. It's got great lead character that's really got a lot going for her immediately. There's a lot to establish why we should care with what she's doing for her brother. But then just a fantastic world with all these creatures. It's already setting up a lot of these rules. I can't wait to read more of this. This is brilliant. So this is probably my favorite Snyder first issue in a while. This is a 9.
Oh, delightful. I was paying attention this whole time, I promise.
I'm sure you were. I'll give Matt a pass because I'm sure he's actually interested in reading this book and just doesn't.
Yes, once it's in trade, that's that's why I didn't get issue 1 because again I have a problem with space right now. So
Matt, your mic's going.
Nice
But,
going.
assuming that this keeps up the quality, I can safely recommend this to anyone, even if you are just a trade waiter.
Yes. Well, I have a Patreon book that I'm going to do this week, which because I foolishly thought this was going to be a quicker week. I did not expect it. I did not expect us to go 90+ minutes on Infinite Frontier. That was a surprise. But yes, Animal Man issue 6, Grant Morrison's run. And this is a delightfully weird issue. I mean, I don't know what else you expect from Grant Morrison.
You described a Grant Morrison
at this point. So the Thanagarians in this issue, but specifically there's a Thanagarian who's coming down to Earth to do a piece of art, martyr art, where he's going to do something that involves his death that will probably kill lots of people. Because we start off in a Thanagarian ship, and they're like, and there's a female Thanagarian who's kind of like the second one there, who is kind of giving him shit, but ultimately is there to help him. Her outfit is especially skimpy, even by comic book standards. She like literally all that's covering her top half is the 2 straps that are going down to her belt, so that's what's covering her nipples. So it's super sleazy.
In Vegas, that's called a Saturday night.
So yes, so he's basically kind of this like weird like modern performance art, but this bomb that he's going to set off is like it goes through all of his life memories, so his life flashes before everyone's eyes on Earth before it explodes, but then it'll explode on a tectonic plate and it'll just cause destruction all over the planet. But he'll die during this, hence the term martyr art or martyr artist or whatever he's doing.
Mart.
So that's the whole idea. It just so happens that they land fairly near a zoo, which Buddy is having a talk with his agent, who's criticizing him for going vegetarian because he's like that's harder to promote for some reason. I don't know. But there's a rumble, and it's like, wait, there's a ship. What's going on? So Buddy, of course, runs off to get his outfit, and shows up and says, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing?" The female Thanagarian fights him, and they're fighting in the sky. I will say there's some wonderful art here. There's a small couple of subtle things, like he's riding across the field towards the water, and you just see the shadow of the flying Thanagarian above him. But there's also a moment where he gets hit in the back of the head with the Morning Star, and the way the art sort of shows his lips kind of like curl up to like reveal his gums as he's like in pain is particularly delightful. But he runs to the water because he's like, well, okay, in the water I can take the properties of a fish and have an advantage down here. Is basically his idea. So he goes out of the water into the lake, and he actually rips off her wings in the lake. Now it's worth mentioning here, this is a part of continuity where Thanagarians are completely aliens, and the wings are not attached. They're part of a suit that help them control their flight, because the belt has the anti-grav device in it, which because he takes off the wings, he's like, okay, this will make the anti-gravity thing be wonky because she can't control it. It shoots her like up into the air, like out of the lake, and she's going so high that she has to turn it off, and it basically kills her when she lands. It's actually a really absurd page of her flying out of this lake. It's almost like she's been shot out of a cannon, going up into the sky. And then so I was like, oh shit, and she turns off her anti-gravity thing and then falls to her death. I didn't realize she even died at first until someone mentions, like the artist one who's now left is like, oh, you killed the Thanagarian, you're a commendable foe. I'm like, wait, killed her? Oh shit, that was dark. It was funny, but it was dark. So yeah, a bunch of birds attack Buddy. And we get this sort of weird section where it turns on the bomb orb thing, and it's like randomly there's like sections of panels that are actually playing like flashbacks of this Thanagarian's life, counting down to whatever his most emotional memory is, and that'll trigger the explosion, which I guess makes some amount of sense. But it's all really well told. It flows really naturally. I was kind of into the absurd premise, but it does have a big joke ending because the Thanagarian does drop dead, And there's also a really in fact, yeah, his earliest memory is a Thanagarian doctor holding up him as a naked baby, really covered in various fluids and whatnot. He's going, "It's a male," just really deadpan, which kind of made me chuckle.
Seems like this Thanagar that we're all familiar with.
So
hasn't changed that much, has it?
No.
So the last few pages of the book are Buddy, he's got this orb bomb thing, and he's trying to sort of figure out a way to stop it, and the memories are still playing, and he's starting to look more and more panicked. He's like, "How do I turn it off? How do I stop it? How do I stop it?" And he's trying various things, and he's pulling his hair out, and he's really tense, and he's sweating, and everything's building up. And then just at the end of page 20, because it's a 24-page book, page 23, a finger comes in, and you just hear a little noise, and Buddy looks through his fingers because he's got his hands up against his face thinking he's going to die, and he looks through his fingers, and the last page is just Hawkman standing there with his arms folded saying, "All you had to do was switch it off."
Yeah.
That's the end of the book. It ends in a total joke cliffhanger, or not even a cliffhanger, just a joke reveal.
Joke ending.
Yeah. So not a standalone issue, but another memorable one that I thought was really funny and dark in places, and it was delightful. I don't know what else to say. It was delightful. The next one looks like it's got red robots in it. Red Mask is the name of the villain here, apparently. We'll see. I'll see what that's like. But issue 6, it wasn't as quite as obviously issue 5 with the whole Wile E. Coyote parallel had some sort of weird existential kind of deep vibe to it that made you think about life and the meaning of everything. I mean, I have no doubt Grant had some extra meaning in this, but this one read a bit more just like a really fun, almost making fun of performance art or something like that type of story.
I suspect, again, it's been a while since I read it, but going from your recap there, I think it's probably about taking art too seriously. It's probably his concern.
Yes,
and I think the joke ending is very intentional, as his kind of point is have some fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, even the fact that there's this ridiculous fight happening as the bomb's been set up, and then everything else. Yeah, I mean, it's not as deep a message. Like I say, it's not as this existential thing. It's quite a simple, straight to the point. Hey, we can have lighter stories. We can lighten up a little bit. Also, don't kill yourself for your art is probably another just a in your face point to make.
Marked.
So, yeah, that's a solid 8 out of 10. That issue. I enjoyed it. I'm digging this book so far. This run has been good. One of Morrison's upper. I'm finding that I like older Morrison than I do more recent Morrison. That's kind of what I'm discovering. Because I also because the first 12 issues or whatever it was of his Doom Patrol that I read, I also really liked. So clearly 90s and 80s Morrison is a bit more my jam.
Yeah, you love Arkham Asylum as well.
Yes, I do love Arkham Asylum. So there you go. That's Iron Man number 6. So that'll take us out of the part of the show. We pick our favourite part of stuff of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and top 5 books if we indeed read 5. So we'll start off with favourite panel / moment. Matt, what have you got for us?
I'm going to go from Infinite Frontier, from the Superman story with John, as he's, spinning through time, trying to, we don't know exactly what he's doing till the end. But the one that basically the page that gives his entire history in one go, I thought that was really cool.
Connor?
I'm going from Swamp Thing, which probably not surprised given how highly I rate it. I think what I am choosing though is maybe a bit more of a surprising choice from it, because it's not any of the big fancy Swamp Thing moments. It doesn't actually feature Swamp Thing at all. It's from the story part at the start where the sheriff's telling the story of the Pale Wanderer. The bottom panel of the first page of that story has a lot more context coming back to it, where he's talking about he knows deep down he's becoming something else, and it's just his face and he looks scared, but with the gorgeous red purple colors around it. I love that panel.
Yeah, there's a couple of pages or panels from Swamp Thing that really I could take this. The one where he's falling asleep and it's getting more sort of dreamlike. or whatever. But how can I not say Barbara saying Batgirl's, move out when ready, or whatever the line was. like that Batgirl's coming to fruition moment of her calling them Batgirls. And the fact that Cass wanted it as much as I did. Yes. How can it be anything else?
Sure.
You picked a Superman thing.
Yes, I know.
So don't...
So we're all kind of
I'm just trying to
self-parodies
move
this
along.
week. Matt picked the Superman moment.
Yes.
Pete picked his Batgirls, and I picked the Ram V thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't pick a John's thing. Y'all should be happy.
Ramvi is going to think Connor's stalking him at this point. He's tagging him every week to say, "Oh, my favorite panel this week was in a Ramvi book."
Week.
Sorry?
I don't think I tagged him last week.
What was last week's?
I'd have to double check. But I don't think it was a Ram V book, so I don't think there was one last week.
So you just don't bother when it's the Ramvi book. Okay.
Right.
Good to know. All right. Favorite cover of the week. I'll start off this one. So I do want to mention that I do think the regular Batman cover's quite pretty, and I do think the variant for Suicide Squad, since Matt brought that one up, the Peacekeeper one is quite pretty too. However, it's really between two things. It's between the main Man-Bat cover, which is absolutely horrifically beautiful, and the variant for Swamp Thing, the Matina Swamp Thing cover, which is absolutely breathtaking.
Do you know what? Weirdly, not a fan of the Matina Swamp Thing. I get why it's appealing, but it's not working for me for some reason.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing we've established, is the degrader, Conroe,
Conroe the Degrader.
Conroe the degrader, CR21.
I am building
It's
up
like Vigo,
just a massive amount of titles here.
Yes, and then at the end,
Conroe
just the word prick.
Degrader is like
Just at the very bottom.
Vigo the Carpathian. So someone that's good at art, draw Connor as Vigo the Carpathian.
This started to sound like a bunch of titles from Game of Thrones, where they listed out all the titles before they get to the name. That's what it's starting to sound like.
Supreme Prick. That's the last title.
And don't forget Ginger, which was the original.
Well, once
That's
we
the
come
first.
up, if we can get a finalized version of this, I can stick it in my Twitter bio.
There you go. I don't think you have that many characters available.
I know.
I don't know what the limit is on the Twitter bio.
Yes. I'm going to go with the Matina Swamp Thing, but I do want it to be said that main Man-Bat cover I think is also gorgeous. But we got Matt.
I'm more with the main Batman cover. Just the whole yellow background and then the purples, right, with Batman there, and then it gives way to the silhouette of Scarecrow. It's a really cool image.
Got it?
Yeah, that is really nice. It's that or Man-Bat for me, and seeing as Matt's already had that, I'll throw out Man-Bat.
There you go.
There you go.
Man-Bat and Batman.
All right, best art of the week. I'll jump in here because I want to add a little detail to this where I'm giving it to Mike Perkins, but I feel quite proud of Mike Perkins. Not that our best art of the week is a coveted prize, but I do feel like he's flirted with it and we've wanted him to get it, but there's just always either been a better artist or there's been a few problems. I think this is
something holding him back.
This is his best art he's ever done, and I feel like he claimed and he has earned the proclamation of best art of the week. So Mike Perkins for Swamp Thing is getting it for me. Connor.
I'm going to agree. I think Jiminez puts up a good fight.
Oh, it's fantastic. Batman was great.
And Kumar for Man-Bat, one or two panels aside, I think is very good. But Perkins absolutely kills it.
Yep. Matt?
Ditto. Mike Perkins.
There you go.
Everything you guys said.
Clean sweep for Perkins. So top 5 books of the week, Matt.
1 Swamp Thing, 2 Infinite Frontier, 3 Batman, 4 Man-Bat, and 5 I did this to myself, Suicide Squad. That's how bad Crime Syndicate is, in my opinion.
Connor?
Swamp Thing, Batman, Man-Bat, and then I guess Infinite Frontier. Unless I can count Nocterra in there, in which case that goes second.
No, you cannot. So number 1 for me, Swamp Thing. Number 1 for me, Swamp Thing. Number 2 is Batman. Number 3 is Infinite Frontier. And then Man-Bat's number 4, and then off a cliff, but number 5 is Crime Syndicate, issue 1. But I want to say, though, I do want to say here, since we're sort of in the summary part of this, I do think it's the first week of Infinite Frontier, even though there wasn't a ton of books. I think Infinite Frontier itself and then Batman and Swamp Thing make me feel very happy about Infinite Frontier as an era to start off with. If I get another, like, say, 3 great books next week where I'm really enthusiastic, I'll be
I
delighted.
can't wait to find out if Pete loves or hates Vikings in his Wonder Woman book.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll find out. But Connor won't be here. And what will we be talking about? What will all of us be reading when Connor's not here? I'll tell you right now. So coming next week from DC Comics, Wonder Woman 770, Superman 29. Obviously, these are the starts of the new runs, naturally. Rorschach issue 6, The Joker issue 1, Green Lantern season 2, issue 12, which Connor will be reading for Patreon, actually, just not next week because he's not here. So.
Oh, will I?
Yes.
Have you read the other ones?
I'm like 4 issues behind, but I mean, I've got them sat in a pile next to me.
He can catch up.
They're like, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. They're right there.
That's hilarious. Someone gave him the last issue.
Yeah. Batman. Well, so that's the thing. They gave him a choice of Future State Suicide Squad, but Connor said he wouldn't do both stories because it's like 40 pages. So it became Green Lantern season 2, issue 12.
I'm okay with that. I've been enjoying the book.
Well, there you go. You're happy.
Enjoys it so much that he's 4 issues behind.
I am 4 issues. Do you know how many issues I'm behind on various books that I absolutely love?
No.
They stack up next. I was 3 issues behind on Once and Future until yesterday, and I absolutely love that book.
Okay, let me finish that. Let me finish this list so we actually finish before the 4-hour mark, please. Batman Urban Legends issue 1 is out next week. And then also, obviously not covered on the show, but American Vampire 1976 issue 6 and Sweet Tooth The Return issue 5. So, not a huge number of books next week, but unlike this week, one of them is not the complete era setting 64-page mammoth that Infinite Frontier was. So next week should actually be like half the length of this one. So look forward to that. So also Connor's not here if that sort of thing excites you.
I'm sure people are very disappointed that they won't get my thoughts on something. I don't know what would be the juicy thing, but something.
Yeah. That is what's coming next week. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers. Although I'll remind you all to go vote in the top 50 DC characters of all time. I will put the submission link, which will be a Google Doc, in the description of the episode for both YouTube and the audio feed. But you can also find it on our Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. But also follow us on at DC Comics Podcast. But yes, I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bordenau, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are all patrons at $20 or more, which is why they're Patreon producers. But you can support us for as little as $1 per month and get warm, fuzzy feelings inside for helping keep all the content coming. You can at the $5 tier specifically, though, you do get early access to the show by a day. And previously in the Multiverse, which is a little erratic in schedule, but it does go up a month early for patrons when it does go up. So that's another perk there. So go have a look and see if you're interested over at Patreon. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us out a lot. It's how YouTube deems success. That is both on the main episode and also all the cut-up parts that go on Comics from the Multiverse, that specific YouTube channel. Otherwise, that's about it. I've already done Twitter, so yeah, I guess we can finally wrap up this mammoth beast of an episode. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. Never trust Conroe. And remember to never get lost at the Speed Force. Speed Force? The Speed Force.
Speed, more like Speed Farce.
Hey, that's a good title. Speed Farce. That's a satire comedy waiting to happen.